Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of Flag Plus Football's First and Goal podcast. My name is Brent Bodkin. I am your host, FPF Hall of Famer. What's going on? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get ready to go. Quasi is not here tonight. Quasi's at a football banquet, I believe, with the team he coaches. So I'm going to be riding solo today. We have an action-packed show. We have two guests coming on. One's going to be on in the next minute or two. We're going to get to him in a second. Quick things going on in FPF, obviously. For most teams right now, we're entering week 5, right? For some teams have played 5 games, some teams have played 4 games, some even 3. Obviously, that's the case every year with the schedule in FPF. But obviously, all that to say that the action is full bore right now. Everything is picking up in every single division: 5v5, 6v6, co-ed, women's, men's, everything. Flag Plus football is rocking and rolling right now. So we'll get to some of what's rocking and rolling in a few minutes. Again, like I said, we have a guest coming on, our first guest of the evening. So it's a guy that I tried to recruit to my team, and I was going through my messenger, and I messaged him a couple years ago asking him to come on. He said he couldn't because he's playing on a couple different teams. This guy's a stud receiver, stud rusher. He plays a little quarterback here and there. I've seen him on at defensive back. I've written articles for the divisions that he's played in over the years. I'm actually writing for Division B, so I'm going to be covering him as well this year. Speaking about Thomas Coutu, receiver, defensive back, rusher for Mangoose. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brent. Thanks for having me. Absolute pleasure.
All right, so 6-time All-Star, four individual awards. Obviously, you're an impact player here in FPF. You played for a number of seasons, usually again with Mangoose, sometimes I believe Mangoose as well. Just get back to the beginning. How'd you get into FPF? How did you find out about Flag Plus football?
It's crazy. I was looking back actually right before our show, and I was trying to figure out what year I started. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere around 2015, 2016. So it's almost been 8, 9 years that I've been in the league. To be honest, I always loved playing football when I was in high school, but my shape didn't necessarily allow me to play contact. I was significantly shorter when I was in high school, so contact football just couldn't have been my thing. So joined a couple of friends that were already playing in another league at Flag Football. We noticed Flag Plus popping up, and then since then it's just been a ride with my friends, and it's been since then. To be honest, Nick's my best friend. I've known him for what, 25 26 years already. So, and most of the people on our team, even the Mangoose second team in Division C, I'll give them a shout out. All of them are all friends that I've grown up with. So at the end of the day, I've been fortunate to be able to have fun, perform, but it's been a game with just playing our friends and having fun at the end of the day.
Nice, nice. Okay, that makes sense. That's the story of a lot of people that come out here.
That's it.
Yeah, it's FPF. So you talked about not being able to play tackle, maybe because of your size. Like, did you grow up like watching football though? Did you have like maybe a favorite team?
Absolutely. I grew up watching football here and there. I've actually gone to watch and follow football a lot more when I got to like CJEP in university. And if I have a favorite, to be honest, I don't necessarily have a favorite team. I'm more of a favorite player. So I generally I'm bandwagon that way. I have my quarterbacks that I like, my receivers that I like, my defensive players that I like, and I kind of bandwagon that way all throughout the league. So I can't pinpoint like other like other people I know have their team.
Okay, so who are some of your favorite players then?
I might have some hate over it, but you gotta love Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, JJ, Jamar Chase. I mean, look, I might be liking the best players in the world, but that's if anything, they're an inspiration. Love their way they play their game and how dedicated they are. So that's why I love them.
Okay, so I was looking at your stats earlier when I was prepping. So you have almost 170 career touchdowns. Now that counts a lot of them at receiver. You've thrown for a couple of touchdowns. I believe you have a couple of pick sixes as well. But talking about receiver, I mean, I don't think I'm going. I don't think I'm saying anything wrong when I say receiver could be your best position. But you talked about Jamar Chase and obviously Justin Jefferson. Who do you model your game after as a receiver?
That's funny because my position as a receiver always changes depending on the team that I have around me. Nick and I obviously has formed a connection that's been lasting for 8-9 years. So there's seasons where I was obviously the best receiver in the team, so I was getting a lot of that workload. But in recent seasons, you've had guys like James Drysdale joining our team, Marvin, Vincent Till, who all have had massive impacts and stretched the field significantly. So I can't say I actually associate myself with the player, but more than anything, I follow the guys that are going around that are at Flag Plus Football that are representing Canada. I love watching flag football videos and moves on how to try to make tackling more difficult. The drop down, the hip, moving the ball forward. I try to inspire myself off of that. I know I'm a versatile player. I know I have the hips, the moves. So I always try to learn how to make it more difficult for people to tackle, because that's the hardest thing at flag.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up that word versatility. I know when I was talking to you earlier this week, I believe it was when I asked you. Sorry, I think it was on the weekend when I asked you to come on to the podcast this week. You mentioned to me you have volleyball tonight. So
Yeah.
obviously, okay. So if you want to go into that, like, where do you play volleyball? Who do you play for?
Yeah, so anyone I know will know that I do a lot of sports and I do them competitively. So I've played volleyball for the past 10 years. I've run, bike, swim, doing triathlons. I've played competitive golf, flag football, obviously. Man, I just love doing sports and team sports. Other than going to the gym every once in a while, that keeps me busy, happy, and allows myself to disconnect from the work and the personal life.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
How do you think volleyball in particular helps you in flag football?
jumping.
Okay.
Jumping. There's no other way around it. And I remember when I was in CJIP and I was playing a bit more competitively, I really learned how to train on what to do to train and jump higher. And I know that's helped me in a lot of different sports and fields.
Okay. So I mentioned a few minutes ago, obviously, about like you played a bit of quarterback, you played a lot of rusher, a lot of receiver. If you had to pick one position, like what's your favorite position to play in flag football?
So I'm gonna say quarterback. I've played quarterback, but it's only when Nick's not available. So I can't I can't say I'm a good quarterback. I love the position though. I wish I was better at it. But look, my favorite position is definitely receiver. But there's something so gratifying playing rusher. Rusher has always been the position that I consistently perform. If you look at my stats as a rusher, I'm generally always top three every season in, season out. There's something gratifying about having a third down or fourth down play and having a sack and bringing that quarterback back. Getting into a quarterback's head. I talk a lot. It's always friendly talk, trash talk, but I love to get into the quarterback's head because that's how you can truly have an impact. So as much as I know how to catch a ball and make the move offensively, I'm happy to say that I know I can have an impact as playing rusher, like I know so many others in the league can do as well.
Okay, I have to say I'm inclined to believe you. I've played against you. You've been a rusher, and I saw you rush actually this past Sunday against Poseidon's Kiss. We'll get into that game in a second, but in your career, you have 248 sacks. So obviously, you're closing in on that milestone of 250. That number that I just gave you, what does that mean to you, and how do you think you've been so effective as a rusher?
Man, that number is actually astonishing. I don't necessarily think of that. I mean, I look at the stats on a per season basis, but my goal every year has always been to get digit sacks. And the more competitive the divisions are, the more difficult it is to get to that double digit sacks. Like, for example, division when we used to play in Division A or 5v5, quarterbacks usually start like 7-9 yards out behind their snapper. So I basically have to run 15 yards before even touching the QB. That gives so much time to these great quarterbacks that can throw the ball so fast, so hard. But look, I'm surprised I'm already at that point. I know I've been part of the record books for a little while. I don't think I'm gonna ever reach the first position. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first position has something around like 450 sacks, so I'd have to play another 10 years to be able to reach there. But look, I mean, to be honest, at the end of the day, I'm looking at those stats, and those stats mean nothing if I don't have a championship.
But okay, so I was going to ask you about that, right? So looking at it, like I said before, you're a six-time All-Star. You've won four individual awards, but unfortunately, there's a zero, at least for now, in the championship column. How much drive does that give you? And obviously, a lot of the guys you play with, because you talked about the guys like Nick Schaefer and the rest of the guys that you play with, you have a tight group. So how much does not winning a championship push you guys?
I mean, it pushes us a lot. We have a lot of people on our team that are extremely competitive, both professionally and personally. So every week, our goal is to win games. And at the end of the day, it's to win a championship. I'm 0-3 in championships. And that last one a couple of seasons ago hurt real bad. But look, at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, every season we come up and our goal is to have fun, win, and play with our friends. So that's kind of the mentality of Mangoose, and I feel like that's what makes a lot of people be attractive with Mangoose, is just how fun it is. I think a lot of people um, keep praising how our team just genuinely seem to have fun on the field and whatnot. So at the end of the day, that's always been the main goal, and winning is always so much more fun than losing.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, so let's talk about Mangoes for a second. So like we said, Nick Schaefer, there's Marc Antoine Chaput, uh, Oliver Suri, Alex Borzelot. I don't know if I'm missing anybody else here. Get Gabriel Drapo, so Galarski. Again, it's a tight knit group. You guys have been together for a long time. Um, just throwing it out there. You're usually in Division B sometimes you're in Division A or Division One, Division Two. With everything that you guys have accomplished together, ignoring the championship thing, but with everything you guys have accomplished together, besides winning a championship, what else do you think is left? Is it just playing to have fun, or why do you guys keep on going?
Yeah, look, we always strive to get into the best divisions. We we had a lot of successes in the past few seasons where we moved up from C to B to A, and we were able to compete in all of those divisions and have winning seasons. When we tried to make the switch to 5v5 as a team who played for 8-9 years in 6v6, that was a very difficult to adjust. I'm seeing my friends at EZW that just did that switch, and I was speaking with Jay White and the team, and they're facing the same challenges. So when we had a losing season after that, we decided to come back to Division B last season, and look, we got, I mean, to put it bluntly, we got slapped in the face with an 0-10 season. I think everyone in the team, Nick, myself, and the rest, we lost a couple of big guys with the Untitled brothers last season, but nevertheless, we were kind of put a bit out of our position. But since then, we were able to bring Marvin in. Simon's back. Akim, who joined our team last season, is now. Yeah. Adjusting himself really well to our defense and our offense. So obviously, I think we're back to our original self. And at the end of the day, we're always going to strive to aim higher and compete with the best of the best.
Okay. I want to give a shout out actually to Hakim. He came from my team. He left my team to join you guys, and he said he wanted to play in a higher.
I didn't
division,
know that actually.
So yeah, it's all good. It's all good. No, he's a good dude. He's a guy I played with him for like a million years. Great dude. Good guy on defense, especially as I'm sure you're aware. Okay, so I want to ask you. So, okay, we talked about the struggles, obviously in Division Two last year, going 0-10. Now in Division B, you guys are 5-1. Unfortunately, you had your first loss of the season this past Sunday in a game I score kept against Poseidon's Kiss. What I mean, you talked a little bit about it a few seconds ago, right? But besides kind of getting some of the new bodies in the lineup, what kind of confidence has some of those maybe those new players like guys that came in the second season with you guys like Marvin? What kind of maybe different mix to the formula? What kind of different confidence have they given your team?
I mean, like I to be honest, we're just back to original self. Look, Marvin allows allows the other receivers and Nick to be able to stretch the field, move the focus and attention that perhaps I had the last season back to Marvin, and allows Nick to be able to have multiple options. Right, our playbook always generally has one or two reads, and it's always based on one position at defense. So if they're cheating on me or they're cheating on Marvin, usually there's going to be someone that's going to be open. Marvin is one position on offense that's obviously had a lot of impact, but having Simon Antil back, I mean, he's just a shutdown corner. He's been great with our team. We wish Olivier Souris was there a bit more. I know he's been unfortunately really busy with his own projects this summer, but we're going to be able to have him back, and he's always been a big piece on our defense. And look, the rest of the team, Akim now on defense, he's playing tremendously and allows us to stay even more competitive. At the end of the day, I think more than anything, it's Nick's confidence that's back. He had it hard when we had our winning seasons. I think he was a bit. He was a bit put out of place when we switched to 5v5 and then back to 6v6, but he's back, he's healthy, his confidence is back, and once his confidence is back, the whole team got confidence.
Okay. So with the group you have, right? Again, a lot of playmakers up and down that lineup, and again, for the majority of the squad, it's a lot of the veteran guys you've had over the last couple of years, minus the guys you've recently added, like again Hakeem and Marvin. Who's the biggest trash talker on your team?
I'm gonna say me, probably.
Okay.
I'm gonna say me. Marvin likes to talk a lot. Nick likes to talk a lot on the sidelines, trying to hype up the defense. But I always like to talk it right in front of the QB's face, trying to get in their head. It's always friendly. As much as I trash talk, I always give props to the QBs when they have good passes or make a good touchdown. So I know I can have the respect of other QBs in the league doing that. But it's a mind game, man, sometimes. And when it gets competitive, you only, it's a game of inches. It's a game of converts. You only need 1 or 2 points to be able to win a game and have a decisive factor. So I'm not shy to talk.
Okay. Who on your team? Which defensive backs? Again, you have a lot of good defensive backs on your team. Who's the one guy in coverage is like, I'll take the top receiver from the other team. I'll take that guy and I will shut him down no matter what.
That's going to be hands down Simon Till. That guy's a lockdown corner, recognized in the league, and he can take anyone and anybody. And we usually switch him around depending on the best receivers on our opponent's team. So yeah, he has that confidence as a corner. And look, we had Vincent Actil back then that had a huge position as safety. I'm pretty confident we're gonna have him back at some point, but Simon right now is dominant as a defensive player.
Okay, so switching from defense to offense now, it's 4th and 10 or 4th and 15. Game's on the line. You have to throw a ball to the end zone, whether it's Nick doing it or maybe you're at quarterback, whether you're throwing the ball yourself. Who are you throwing that pass to on 4th and goal, let's say, to win the game?
I mean, honestly, it's gonna be hard, but obviously the easy answer right now is Marvin. His stats speaks for themselves. He's actually won us games on the last play of the game. He's got sure hands. That guy has sticky hands and very strong hands. So no doubt about it that top of mind is going to be Marvin. But those 4th and 10 and those last, Nick has a cannon arm. So he's able to throw the entire field. And Marvin has actually caught a Hail Mary this season. He's caught a game-winning touchdown to be able to win against Fins up by 1 point. So yeah, Marvin definitely has that confidence to be able to perform on 4th downs. But we have our own plays. We have our plays that allows everyone to stretch the field and make an open play. Nick has to do the read he needs to do, and most often there's going to be someone open.
Okay. So again, Nick Schaefer, your quarterback. He's the guy I've talked about him with players over the last couple of years. Again, I think he's a really good quarterback. Throws a beautiful deep ball, like you said, has a cannon for an arm. Where do you think he stands in kind of the the not the pedigree, but in terms of the
Rankings.
the ranking of quarterbacks, let's say for Division A or Division B. Where do you think Nick fits?
Yeah, look, I think Nick is pretty high up there. I mean, back then, I listened to the podcast on a weekly basis, and a couple of seasons ago, he was compared with the Kevin Wyatt's arms of this world, and Jonathan Maher. He's got that cannon arm that Jonathan Maher has, and and the best of the league have. Um, it's tough to say because there's so many great QBs. Even in Division B, people are competing, and you don't necessarily have to have a cannon arm to be able to be a great QB. Just look at Will Power. I mean, he became a QB into the league just a couple of seasons ago, and replacing Stephen Harbaugh, and he's been balling out. He's always been a QB that's tough to face because he doesn't necessarily throw the ball hard, but he throws it perfectly, just like Stephen used to do. So it's tough. I definitely put him in the top 10, arguably top 5 QB in the league. But with our recent fallouts, I can't. It's tough. It's tough for me to realistically put him at the top when you have such great QBs in Division A right now performing.
Okay. So two more questions before we let you go, because I know you have to get the volleyball. Obviously, growing up, you're French Canadian, right?
Yeah.
So the popularity of not just flag football, but football in general in Quebec, I think for me personally, I think is at an all-time high. I can remember playing tackle as a kid. I was like 11, 12 years old on my football team. There was, I played for Sunday. So it was predominantly English families mostly that play for that team. And I remember there was maybe about 10 to 11 teammates who were Francophone. They came on the team. As I got older and played in higher levels, more and more like if French Canadian kids came out to play. Now you look at Team Quebec U18, Team Quebec U16, flag football. You look at FPF alone, right? There's I think it's a good split of people from both languages, right? Or Duolingo people that want to play football. What, in your opinion? Again, we're growing up in a hockey town. Let's be honest, Alouettes are
Mm-hmm.
popular, but the Canadians are still the Montreal Canadians, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think football in Quebec though has become so popular?
Good question. I've never actually had time to reflect on that. Look, I think Flag Plus, in and of itself, what Rob did with the league before Jeff took over, allowed so much visibility for the young people that are coming over. I think as Canadians, just generally speaking, culture-wise, I think we put a lot of emphasis on health and safety of our people. Look, I have a lot of friends that have had multiple concussions in their lifetime, and flag football, although it can be physical in the upper division, and when you're playing for the ball, obviously it's generally safer than contact football. So I think there's more and more. Not necessarily concern for tackle football, but appreciation for the health and safety of the player when you're playing flag football, and allows people like myself who don't necessarily have the body type to play contact football, but have the moves and the passion to play that sport. And look, more than anything, you have the NFL playing the All Stars, their All Star game with flag football. Now it's coming to the Olympics, so there's just so much visibility around the sport. And Quebec, again, with the League of Flag Plus, is just producing such great talents. I know the guys are going down to LA right now, and a lot of them are my friends, and they're such talented people. Going to give the whole team a shout out and hope that they're going to be performing very well against on the international level. But yeah, I think there's just more visibility worldwide around the sports, and Canada's producing some great players.
Okay. All right. And final question before we let you go. Obviously, again, you talked about you and your team having a lot of fun on the field, right? Again, you've been playing all the way back since 2015, so 10 plus years basically. So what, 10 years exactly, I should say, pardon me, playing in FPF. How much longer do you see yourself playing?
A very long time. I know there's a 35 plus league. I know we're gonna be in there. Look, I've loved the sport. I'm turning 30 right now, so that's crazy. It's in a couple of months, and I know so many players. I mean, look at the Braves team. I mean, all of them have kids, and and are in their late 30s. So I can certainly use that as a benchmark to be able to continue performing at the highest level. So I'm expecting to play another easy 8 to 10 years. Just hoping that the team follows and we're still able to create a team back there.
Hey, listen, if you ever want to play Division C or Division Three, you let me know. I'll sign you up right away, man. You hop on the team
Keep
anytime
keep
you
hitting
want.
me up. Keep hitting me up.
All right, all right,
All right. Appreciate the time,
all right. Sounds
Brent.
good. All right, thank you. I appreciate you coming on, man, and enjoy volleyball. And I'll see you soon at the field.
Have a good one.
All right, you too. Take care, man. All right. So that Okay, so that was Thomas Coutu, six-time All-Star here in FPF, standout receiver, standout rusher, great guy. Again, thank you from Mangoose. Thank you for coming on again, Thomas Coutu. So yeah, we have another guest coming on. Should be coming on in about, I want to say, 10 to 15 minutes. A big surprise. I put a question up on Facebook earlier this morning, actually, before I went to bed after scorekeeping last night. People want to post some questions to him. That's going to be Leo Gervais, head referee here at Flag Plus Football. So Leo should be coming on the show again in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Again, big thank you to Thomas once again for coming on. So before we get Leo on the air here, so let's hop over to a couple of things going on. So Division A, a couple of things again from scorekeeping this week that I noticed. So the Braves took on the Party Crashers last Friday in a game I scored kept on Laval. Party Crashers kind of should have came up with the upset victory. They were kind of leading at various points in the game. They had the advantage, and then two interceptions by Jean-Lee Alexis. Not to say they're his fault. Ended up kind of costing them. Again, against the Braves, it is what it is, right? You can't turn the ball over against the Braves, and unfortunately for the Party Crashers, they ended up doing that in their loss to the Braves. Again, it was a tight game. Like I said, the score kept that one. It was back and forth for a while. Both teams were trading big plays back and forth. Again, some of the best names you're ever going to see on the flag football field were on the field that night. Again, a 36-33 victory for the Braves over the Party Crashers. Again, that's last Friday the 13th, actually, last Friday. Last week's episode came out on that day as well, so hopefully you got a bit of a treat from the episode, and hopefully if you had a chance to come on and watch the game in Laval. Just looking at the stats here again, Jean-Lee Alexis, 170 yards, 4 TDs, but again 2 INTs. Joe Maheu, 23 of 27 for 227 yards, so only 4 incompletions. He had 4 TD passes. So obviously he did his thing in that game. And it's a shame too because Emerson Peterkin, who plays receiver for the Party Crashers, had a phenomenal game. 7 catches, 111 yards to go along with 3 TDs in that game. But again, the 2 INTs by the Party Crashers kind of did them in. The infantry, though, speaking of Division 8, infantry, they finally got their first win of the season. Just trying to find the score here for you. Is the infantry? So yeah, infantry had knocked off the Vultures 36-30. That was this past Sunday. So on Father's Day, happy Father's Day for all the dads out there, by the way. I know it's a couple days afterwards, but you get the idea. So the infantry for 36-30 victory over the Vultures. That was also another great game there. So a bit of a change at quarterback for the infantry. Kevin Wyeth, usual quarterback, did not throw. It was actually Jalen Greaves, stud receiver, playing quarterback. 18 to 24, 154 yards, 4 TDs, only 1 INT. Marc-Andre Lapointe, usually a snapper, receiver, and obviously defensive back. He threw a TD pass as well. Ben McMahon, the quarterback for his Vultures team, 5 TD passes, 1 INT in the game. Rory Submergian, the captain of this infantry team, 4 touchdown passes on 8 catches for 71 yards. So a big outing for Rory. Congrats to him and Ethan and Adrian. We're going to talk about rushers. We had a poll on Instagram. We had a poll on Facebook, and I'll give you the results in a few minutes on that. But Ethan Adrian, who came in second, so a little spoiler alert, he came in second in terms of the top male rushers in FPF. 3 sacks in that game. So he obviously played a big part in that win, along again with Rory with 4 TDs and Jalen Greaves tossing 4 TDs as well. So congrats to infantry for finally kind of getting out the shine here. So the infantry, their record moves now to, I believe that they're 1-4 right now. So they're in last place, but they're 1-4. But it's all right. Again, hopefully for them, nowhere to go but up. Switching over to Div B real quick. So for Never Overtime, a game I saw last night in Broussard. Again, switching to Division B here. Never Overtime, with other starting quarterback in Ryan Carruth. So Carruth, he was on the sideline. He was present at the game. I think he's battling some sort of injury. I'm not sure if it's upper body or lower body, but again, no Ryan Carruth, no problem for never overtime is they knocked off Lay's Verge Fall 40-30 last night in Brassard. So Olivier Sabarin, usually receiver, really one of the underrated receivers. I had a chance to play against him last year in Div C. Now that team is in Div B. One of the underrated receivers ended up playing quarterback in that game, and he had a pretty impressive outing: 17-29, 215 yards, 5 touchdown passes in that game. So Olivier Sabarin really coming through for his team. Again, 5 touchdown passes to 4 different receivers. Mac Desor, touchdown, of course. Rami Aboud, a touchdown. Those are the two top receivers on the team, but they were joined by Ivan Salmon. Salomon, pardon me, one of the fastest players in all of FPF. I remember him coming up with Block Party, one of the lower division teams. Now he's playing in a higher division. He made an impact. And Cedric Amasan, 2 TD passes, leading his team in that one. Kind of ruined a spectacular night for Le Verge foes. Carl Bonola, 5 catches, 93 yards, and 2 tutties. But unfortunately, again, they fell 40-30 to never overtime. A couple of the games I had a chance to watch over the last couple of weeks. Division C actually last night as well. So Coldest is without the main man, Gucci himself, known as Sam Amambo. He missed the game. He has a hand injury, something with his right hand. He had it wrapped up in a bit of a, not a cast, but he had a kind of a splint on a couple of his fingers there, maybe his thumb. He was out of the lineup, but his team, they didn't miss a beat. They beat Jagerbomb by a score of 33-32 last night. I saw that game. It was back and forth. It was actually Coldest was dominating in the first half of that game. They kind of took their foot off the gas though a little bit, let Jagerbomb, a veteran team, a powerful team, come back in that game. And it kind of came down to the last play of the game in that one. But again, Coldest getting the victory in that one. Kendally, Cassie, 2 INTs in that game. And I think Sam's brother Kako Amambo had a pick six in that contest. There was a quarterback in the game. I hadn't really seen him much. Matthew Aurelius. He had a pretty solid game. He had, I'm looking at it here, 3 TD passes, which is pretty solid. But then he had 8 rushes for 58 yards and a touchdown. This guy was juking and driving everywhere. He was giving the Jagerbomb defense fits. So again, congrats to Coldest on getting the W again, 33-32 over Jagerbomb. One other game, actually, so I'm gonna get to this game in a moment here. I'm gonna jump actually right now to four downs. So four downs is a segment that Quasi and I usually do. He usually picks 2 downs. I pick 2 downs. Just things we want to talk about that are going on right now in FPF. So first down, I want to go with a lot of the injuries. I had a chance to play against the Bandits almost a week ago. So last Thursday, by the time this comes out, it'll be a bit more than a week. But my team, the commission, played against them last Thursday in Laval. We had a big comeback victory. We played like hot garbage in the first half. We came back and got some stops and won the game. Uh, a couple of days later at Loyola on Sunday, one of the players went down. I believe it was a torn Achilles. So you hate to see that. And there was another player as well on Sunday at Loyola that also reportedly had a torn Achilles as well. So again, injuries unfortunately happen in any form of football, especially in FPF. You hate to see that. So guys and girls going down with season-ending injuries. So prayers up for those 2 guys who went down with injury. Again, had a chance last night to score Creeping Bassar. No one got too banged up, thankfully, knock on wood. Everyone seemed to be okay after their games, obviously minus a couple of bumps and bruises and whatnot. But again, injuries are a crappy part of the sport, but unfortunately it happens, right, when you play a fast and physical game like flag football. For me, second down, obviously, so Thomas Coutu mentioned it in his interview, right? Obviously, the Olympics 2028, the Olympic Games in LA. There is a tournament going on in LA this weekend. I had a chance to talk to AJ Gomez, of course, part of Team Canada, one of the reserves. Of course, I'm pretty sure he's going to manage to find his way onto the field quite a bit. I had a chance to talk to him Monday at Mary Vic. He's super excited to go, obviously representing Team Canada, representing the country. So it's a tournament. So it's a qualifying tournament, actually, to kind of qualify for the Olympics. So they're going to be taking on a couple of different teams. Again, with the 2028 Olympics being the end goal for all these teams who are taking part in these tournaments. The question, though, I have for you on this second down of the segment is, should the NFL and CFL be allowed to put players in to the Olympics? I know, obviously, the whole big thing was coming out. There was a vote. It was passed to allow NFL players to participate in the upcoming 2028 Olympics. It's supposed to be pretty much one player per NFL team is allowed to go. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of players who've expressed interest in playing. Guys like Tyreek Hill said they want to go. Joe Burrow has said he wants to go. Jamar Chase has said he wants to go. There's a lot of other players who want to go, and rightfully so, right? The NFL has the best players in the world, but as you know, for guys or even girls that have played tackle and make that transition to flag, it's not always the easiest thing. I can tell you from personal experience, it took me about almost 2.5 seasons to fully kind of immerse myself in the flag and know all the rules, and be able to train not just my body but my mind to think of, okay, I can't stiff arm, I can't do this. You have to be careful of the flag guarding. A lot of players do it purposely or not purposely when they're running with the ball, both male and female. So it'd be interesting to see. Obviously, like Thomas said, even at the Pro Bowl now they have flag football, and obviously flag football was a lot more popular now than when it was 10 or 15, almost 20 years ago. Hence why it's in the Olympics. But it's interesting. We'd like to get your take, right? I'll create a poll on Facebook and we'll do it on Instagram. Should the NFL and CFL, because don't forget, there's going to be some CFL players there too, I imagine. Should the NFL and CFL be allowed to send players to the Olympics? We want to get your opinion on that. I think yes. I think it'll make it that much more exciting. And again, let's be honest. The Olympics, they want ratings. It is what it is. Right? It is an Olympic sport. It's been going on since almost the beginning of time, but they want ratings, right? It's TV networks and so on and so forth. The other side of that equation, though, of course, is what about those players who've been playing flag? Like that's their thing. I don't want to say professional job, but players who don't play in the NFL, the guys here in FPF, ladies in FPF, right? That's gonna kind of take a spot away from somebody else, unless you have maybe a special exemption where you're allowed to have, let's say, I believe it's a 12-man roster. I think it's the same thing for the ladies. I have to double check on that. My apologies. Maybe if you're allowed to have that 12 plus one, or I imagine the 12 is going to be the NFL or CFL player. But it's interesting. Again, should NFL or CFL players be allowed to participate in the Olympics? Let's hear what you guys have to say about that. Quickly again, so we're waiting for Leo Gervais to come on. So yeah, Leo. So I'll get to the third down and fourth down a little later in the show. Two big things. We mentioned one of the names earlier, but we'll get to that a little later. So we have the main man himself, the head official here in FPF, a good buddy of mine, someone I've known for well over a decade, a great guy. If you played even one game of FPF, chances are you've seen him at the field. Again, a top official here, the head cheese, if you will, of officiating in Flat Plus football, the one and only Leo Gervais. Leo, my friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So, Leo, let's get into it, my friend. Let's get into it. So, for those of you that don't know, obviously, again, Leo's an official, not just an FPF official. He does high school games, he does college games, he does youth sports, he does some work with the CFL as well. Let me ask you first, Leo, how long have you been officiating for?
I started tackle officiating in 1998, so quite a while ago. Anyway, I got into it. I knew a guy that actually was a head of. He wasn't the head of school, but he worked at a local private school, and I used to do business with him when I was in the newspaper business a couple of lifetimes ago. Anyway, and I knew him, and one day I saw he had some football memorabilia stuff on his desk, and I had been a coach at Concordia before, and I had played obviously and all that tackle football. Never gave a thought to being an official, and we just started talking about football. He said he was an official, and he said, maybe you should try it," and never had an interest in it at all. And I spoke to him a little bit, and he kind of convinced me. His name was Ron Romanato, and I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And that's how I started. I started in tackle, and then I started doing some flag. I did some, well, at that time, in the early 2000s, touch football was still very popular. So I did some tournaments here and there with different people, and just sort of on the side. And then around 2006, I guess it was the year after Flag Plus started, I got a call from a guy who had taken over. His name was Saul Glicksman. I don't know if you remember him or not, but back in the day, and he was a tackle official. Actually, I knew him through. He was actually older than I was, and I'm going to be. Someone said I shouldn't say I'm going to be 60. I'm only 59, so I'm 59. But he was probably about 10 years older than I was. Anyway, long story short, he called and he said, "Hey, listen, I need some guys to do this flag league." I said, "Flag football? What's that about?" And he explained it to me. I said, "Okay." And I think at the time there might have been 23 or 24 teams or something like that. I was talking to your good friend Mo Khan yesterday, and he said that the first year there was 18 teams. So I didn't see that first season. I got there, I think it was the second season. Anyway, long story short, refed a couple of seasons, and then they wanted to make a change and have another referee in chief, and they called me, and I spoke with Rob Campana, who was the former owner, and we came to some agreements, and I explained how I like to do things. And of course, the league was much smaller than we had a lot fewer referees. We have almost 80 guys now and girls. And yeah, so I've been doing, I think it's my 16th season as the referee in chief for Flag Plus. So, and like you said, I still do. I've been a university official for about 15 seasons. And I'm actually the official scorekeeper for the CFL in Montreal. That's my actual title. But I've worked my way through different positions there. I was the video replay guy, which assists with the referee doing the video replay. I've done the sticks, of course, the down box and all that. Yeah, I've done a whole bunch of myriad of things for the CFL. I guess it's been about 15 or 20 years. I've worked every year for them. I guess I've been the scorekeeper. I think it's my 7th season doing that. So a lot of football and high school as well. Flag, which is different. There's 7-on-7, as you know. The flag's exploding now, but there's been some 7-on-7 before. Like I said, I did the touch, and it's all football, right? So it's just varying machinations. So I hope that encapsulates pretty much everything there.
Okay, okay. So you grew up playing for the Greenfield Park Packers, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I grew up, and I was actually a soccer player. I was the MVP of my high school team. Uh, I was a pretty good soccer player. We went to the provincials, and we had a couple of guys that went on to play like pro and semi-pro. Not that I was that good, but I was sort of I was a midfielder, and I was sort of basically the guy that would harass the other team's best player. I was good at that. I guess people that know me that know that would harassment would become naturally to me. So anyway, so I was walking by a football field one day in Greenfield Park, and I saw some kids playing and practicing, and I said, wow, okay. And at that time they only had bantam and midget in those days. There was no peewee, and I was actually peewee age. I guess I was 13 or so. And I said, wow, that looks kind of cool. And I saw these guys running around, and I didn't know what, I mean, I remember sitting with my dad watching, like the Steelers play the Cowboys and stuff like that. And I sort of was interested in, but here was guys actually playing my age that were or near my age playing football. So I went out and I tried out for the team, and my first year, I actually got cut. I was the last cut of the team, and yeah, I was the last cut of the team, and I remember doing the monkey rolls and running the fence runs, all that stuff. You did all that stuff, and but anyway, but they tried to call me during the season because they wanted to keep me on the taxi squad because I was actually 13, and you had to be 14 to play bantam, and I was small. I was probably 135 pounds or something. So anyway, long story short, so I went back up the next year, and I lifted weights. I guess I did some push-ups, and I lifted some weights, and did some chin-ups, and did some running and stuff. Anyway, I made the team, and I was the most dedicated player that year. And then I went on to become a captain and an MVP and all that other stuff. But as you keep playing, if you're really into it, you sort of rise to the level of your competence, I like to think. So anyway, and I played junior like you did, and played some university ball and played at CJEP. So I played about 10 or I guess it was about 10 or 11 years. And then I got into coaching. And then, of course, now I've been a referee for going on 3 decades. So it's a lot of football all over the years.
Okay, so it's pretty safe to call you a football lifer, right?
Well, yeah, pretty much. And I tell you, well, the funny thing was in high school, my like I said, I was a decent player in high school. I was the MVP. And the next year, I went to the coach. I said, "Listen, I need some time off from some practices because there's practices at night, and we practice at night, so I'll need a couple nights off." And he said, "Well, you got to pick a sport. These days we try to find if you especially have a decent player, you try to accommodate them so they can play both sports. Or lots of guys in those days would play hockey in the winter and football, all that stuff. Anyway, long story short, he said you got to pick soccer, pick football. So I picked football, and that was kind of the end of it. But yeah, I never turned back. And as you know now, I mean, there's so much different kinds of officiating you can do because of all these other new things that you were talking about on your podcast. So.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So obviously you made the right choice then to say goodbye to soccer and stay with football. So again, you've been in the game for 27 years, right? As an official, for you, what's been the key to your longevity?
Well, as most other officials will attest to, there's a lot of you have to study, you have exams every year. The higher you go, there's different exams and stuff. For example, like in tackle, there's basically like 4 levels in Canada, and and in Quebec, each position has a letter. So, for example, if you're a head ref, you're an umpire, you're a deep guy, or you're a side guy, each of those positions has a letter. So as you rise through the ranks and do games and pass exams, you go from like N, which is like never being rated, to like a D, C, B, and an A. So the highest you could achieve in that sense would be level 4 A across the board. So I have 3 A's and a B. I like to say it's a B minus at referee because I'm really more of a side guy umpire, but I can do referee obviously. But and of course, then if you've reached the university level, if you're good enough, then you might get selected to for the CFL. And I mean, I'm not going to make it now. I would hope that one time to do it, but it's basic. I mean, and I'm not saying that I should or shouldn't have been there, but it's a combination of age and ability. And I started late as an official, 32. If I'd started 10 years earlier, maybe I could have done it. But it's and you also have to have the special sauce, as they say, the it. So it's a tough thing, and some guys, they get chosen. Some guys don't make it. Some guys get chosen and they're great. We've had guys in FPF actually that have refed FPF and they've either been CFL officials or they went on. Tom Cesare, Ben Major, Michel Paysono. These are all Kevin Riopel was another guy. There's 4 guys right there that 3 of them are still actually in the CFL. So and one guy is the supervisor of officials. So yeah, we've had some. That's really the more focal point. We've had some fantastic officials, and we still do have some fantastic guys in FPF who've done the games over the years. And there's been thousands of games, as you know. So, and you know a lot of these guys yourself. Brett Young and Walter Berry used to be in the CFL. He was an official. Dan Sanersha. I could, there's a lot of guys. So.
Okay, so I was going to ask you that. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
some of the guys like Tom is a good buddy of mine, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
in the CFL. When you look at the role of the official, obviously you're trying to keep order in the game. You're trying to call things down the middle when you see them. Listen, the officials, you guys aren't perfect. Ladies aren't perfect. Sometimes you're going to miss a call. It is what it is. Um, how challenging is it though? So even in flagging and tackle, right? I've seen you referee tackle games from doing broadcasting. I've seen you obviously have been playing in games that you've officiated, and I've done scorekeeping as I did last night in games that you officiated. When it comes time for that player and referee interaction, now we talked about this on last week's episode. Quasi and I just talking about maintaining your cool, right? When both sides are talking to each other. Obviously, in the heat of the moment, right, officials get fired up, players get fired up. Sometimes these changes are positive, sometimes they're not. But when you have a player who's just trying to rain down on you of insults and that, how hard is it for you to maintain your composure? And what advice would you have to maybe some of the younger referees when you have to deal with a player who's just in your face, call after call after call?
Yeah, so the first part of the question is, to my mind, I mean, like the word steward comes to mind. So you might remember the word like stewardess. We used to call flight attendants stewardesses. A steward basically is just someone that's in charge and is keeping order and making sure things are running smoothly somewhere. Okay, and to me, the referees are always the stewards of the game. I mean, like I always say, without referees, it's just recess. And this is a line I use often to tell people when they
Yeah.
start refereeing and to players. I go, if we don't have a score and a whistle, you're just running around throwing the ball around like you're like a kid in a schoolyard. And so when you start keeping track of the score and you want to have rules and you want people to play properly, and it's like, the competition is one of the great things of humanity. And I mean, now there's a lot of women playing, but let's say throughout history, men competing has been going on for centuries. The Olympics from thousands of years ago, people running against each other, sword fights. I mean, you could just competition is in humanity's blood. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes it's to the death. I mean, I don't think we want to go there, but so again, these are people that and a lot of men, and they want to compete. So we should be making sure that let's say the how can I say the situation where they're going to play, like the environment is orderly with rules, and they know what the score is, and not just the actual score, but how they're playing. They can't hold, they can't restrict, they can't tackle people, etc. Flag has its different rules obviously than tackle, so we're in charge of that kind of that environment that the players are playing in. So to your second point, how do you deal with a difficult player? I mean, what I try to tell people, the two things I would tell young people is try to not, like, especially when people start swearing, you're really getting angry. I find you lose the moral high ground if you swear. Someone's calling you an F in this or an F in that, or using the N word or this or that. You lose the moral high ground when you start to swear, because you're supposed to be above that. And we're just human beings too. A lot of us were players. So you're trying to keep everything on the rails. I'm sure you've heard that many times. I got to keep this game on the rails. Well, what that, you're a scorekeeper. You've heard me say that, man. I'm having a hard time keeping this game on the rails, Brent. You got to help me here. So keeping it on the rails means you got to bring the temperature down and try to explain to people. Sometimes, and lots of players, they think they've never had a penalty, they've never held anybody, they've never, right. I mean, that's sort of every person's thing, is it couldn't have been me. Well, I mean, it was you, and like, here's why I'm going to tell you. And so one of the things that, when this was told to me by a guy that's in the CFL now, he used to ref FPF as well, Laurent Zubroy. He has a good saying. He says, always use the verbiage from the rule book. Like, well, that met the standard for defensive pass interference. You restricted him as he went up to get the ball, so that's why I called a penalty. So we're going to move on now. And you blow the whistle, you start the play, 25-second clock, and that's one of the ways. You give an explanation if you have to, and some people will just, no answer is going to be good enough for them, even coaches in tackle. So I just say, listen, you don't agree with the call, that's okay. I mean, I understand why you don't agree, but you're going to have to accept it, and we're moving on. So that's your role, is to try to keep that game moving. And we call it gameplay. If in the CFL, they're coached to, like, okay, like, obviously they have to call penalties if they see them. And it's funny when I read in the newspapers of things, like, sometimes journalists say, oh, the referees called 20 penalties. Well, if you actually analyze the penalties, if 10 of them were procedures and offsides, that's not, that's not a judgment call. That's like, someone lifted their hand up, or the center moved the ball, or that has nothing to do with the officials. They just pointed out that there's an administrative penalty. So if you really looked at the calls that the referees are, responsible for, if you could say, defensive pass interference, holding, things that are judgment nature, there's probably in a professional game, probably 5 to 10 penalties, maybe something like that. And even in an FPF game, when you see a high level FPF game, if there's 4 or 5 penalties, that would be a lot, because these guys are all coached the same way. A lot of them come from university, like I said, or they've been trained by us in FPF. And we're looking, how, is that flag necessary? If it is, I'm going to call it, and we're going to move on. And it's got to have a material impact on the player and the play and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so that's basically, so what you're trying to do is, make a call, explain why it was, if you have to, and then move on. But, you don't even have to really explain your call most of the time. If the offside on the rusher, you're offside, you pass the bag, I'm calling it. And then let's move on. But some players, they just, as the players get older, they do understand, and they know, they'll even recognize the penalty when they see it. If someone arrives before the ball does and wipes somebody out, I mean, that's pretty easy to call. Where he gets difficult is, like, plays near the back of the line, or if you stepped out and you came back in, were you pushed out, did you come back? Those are more difficult, but that's the basic thing, is if you have to explain. And I think, and I'm not saying that I have such a great reputation. The reputation I have, though, I think it was earned. Whatever the reputation is, I believe it was earned because I explain the calls when necessary. Sometimes players see me after the games, and I try to take the time to explain when someone's reasonable and give them a reasonable answer. And when you do that, I do believe that most of the players accept it, and then they learn, and some of the players even become officials after, as you know. So.
Yep.
So that's the basic thing. You have to stand by your call and explain it, and just make sure you're using verbiage from the rule book. Don't just say, oh, you're all over the guy. Okay, well, no, you restricted or redirected him, or you restrained him. You couldn't get to the ball, that's why I called it. Things like that.
How important this saying is one that, like, being a teacher, like, I tell it to the kids in my classroom a lot, and it's one you hear, like, all over life: treat people how you want to be treated. How appropriate do you think that is for, especially the interactions between the referees and the players?
Well, I played a little bit in the league. I was a center. I snapped the ball a little bit. We had a couple of teams I played on. We played on a team called Rage and Vicious Canucks. Yeah, it was fun. And what I try to tell people was, remember, like, it's, I didn't play a lot of flag football, but, and I was a tackle player many in the last century. So it's, as the memories go, as the memories fade, Brent, it gets harder to remember. But what I try to do is I try to put myself in the shoes of the players sometimes, and I'll say, look, I understand, like, you don't like the call, but the call has to be made because of this reason, and it met the standard of pass interference or offside or whatever. So your rusher and as you know, Brent, when people first start playing in the league, they don't really know how to play flag football, and I put my hand up just like you. It took me like 2 years even to officiate properly because I'd see someone get tackled. I'm like, wow, that was a good tackle. Oh hell, I got to throw my flag. That guy's getting tackled. So and even in tackle in football, as you know, like now there's a lot of concern about headshots and all that. So they have different rules that they've come out with. And so we have to adjust. And there's always an adjustment. I mean, if you read up on tackle football back in the day in the last century, I mean, it almost got banned in college because there was like dozens of people, getting severely injured. And like, I think about a dozen people died one year when Theodore Roosevelt was the president, and he had to come in and pass a law to allow the college football to keep going because he was a fan. But there was they didn't have proper helmets, so guys were dying of like head injuries. So obviously there had to be an improvement in the equipment. Now you're talking like 100 years ago, but all that to say, whatever their challenges were then, we have our own challenges here. Like even we have a big we have not only a discipline committee, but we have a rules committee, and every year we meet. There's players on it, and we're always trying to say, like I always tell the referees that are on the rules committee, how can we make the game more fun for the players? Because it's not about us. We're not the show. Like if you think you're a referee and you're going out there and everyone wants to see you throw a flag, you are very sadly mistaken. You don't get paid by the flag, you get paid by the game. And you're trying to make the game the best experience for the players. So I think that's me personally, that's always been my mantra is like, how can I make, generally, like if the referee in chief, how can I contribute to my team to make the games better? And when I'm out there, how can I make the game more fun? And you've seen me ref many times. I always try to be friendly with the guys, but I'm not anybody's friend. I'm the other referee's friend. So they know they can ask me a question. I'm approachable, but I'm there to do a serious job, which is to steward their game and make sure that the rules are applied fairly. And may the best team win. May the best women and best men win the game. So I think if you come from it that way, to try to look at it like, hey, how can the players have the best experience? And I think you've succeeded when after the game, even when people lose, they go, ref, that was a really well officiated game. Thank you. I think that's the best you can hope for. Because like I say, like in tackle, you make a great call, half the people don't like the call. Right. And it's the same thing in flag in a way. But when people are reasonable and especially when they're experienced, they know they're going to get a certain level of officiating with a certain level of official. If there's, they have enough experience in games like I've done thousands of games. A lot of the refs have done like thousands of games in this league. Hopefully we've learned from our mistakes, and we can still make mistakes. Like we had a couple of refs, Walter and Brent one time, and I saw them coming off. I said, hey guys, how was the game? They go, the game was terrible and we were worse. We're human beings. Like we make mistakes. And their terrible game is probably most other people's pretty good game because those are two top officials. But in the end, you're just trying to set the stage, in the ecosystem of flag football that they can have a proper game. And it's a nice feeling when you go to a game and people say, like here comes like the top officials or here comes a guy that knows what he's doing. And I think that's all you can hope for. And like I said before, the way you get there is studying the rules, knowing the rules, applying the rules properly, and also managing the game. So managing the game means, you know, like if it's 40-0 and a team wants to go for a convert and it's the last play, I said, you know what? You don't need the convert. If you hurt your knee on this play, is it worth it? You don't need to score another point. And to let sportsmanship reign in the game. You don't want people like flipping the finger like you've seen in recent games, or like last night we were working on a game together, and the guy flipped the finger at the end of the game because he lost. Is that sportsmanship? No, come on. Like what the heck is that? Like you don't want that. People barking. Listen, people are human beings. They're going to argue. I mean, people argue all the time. If you look at the news, people are arguing all over the world every day. That's the nature of humanity, right? People are going to argue about things. But if reasonable people always are the ones in any situation pretty much in the world, they're the ones that are going to bring the peace, and they're the ones that are going to achieve things and make things get better. It's reasonable minded people. Doesn't matter the age, the sex, the color, anything like that. And I think that's one of the great things of Flag Plus that Rob Campana achieved was it's its own community. I mean, really, when you see, I mean, just like this podcast, there's so many people that are so invested. Even when the new owner came, Jeff Rosenblatt, there's so many people that not like the league, love the league, like really are invested and they want to play in the league. They're willing to put hard-earned money to play in the league. And that's an impressive thing. And now when you see all these people on the national teams coming from Flag Plus, I really think it's a testament to what Rob started and now Jeff is continuing of having a top flight league with top flight players. I like to think at least competent officials, top flight officials sometimes, most of the time, and scorekeepers, admin people like yourself, Mo. These people have been around for ages and ages in the league, and they're part of the ecosystem, as I call it, of Flag Plus football.
Yeah, fair enough. That's fair. That's true. Okay, so you mentioned flag plus football. Obviously, the standard flag, not just in Montreal, not just in Canada, but you can make the argument obviously worldwide. Where do you think our league can grow more, or where do you think how can we make it better?
There's always room for improvement. Like, it's always a challenge to, like, I'll speak from the officiating point of view first. You want to have people that can do games and that, know the rules. And, there's a lot of other opportunities to officiate. As an example, like you could do tackle football. A lot of people do both. There's other leagues, like there's the MFL, there's Terrebonne. And a lot of these leagues have taken a lot of what we've done and replicated it, or they've taken the rule book and slightly modified it. And a lot of the innovations that we've done, I mean, they I don't want to say they copied it, but they let's just say they paid homage and they use a lot of what we've done, which is fine. I mean, like, I think that's a compliment. When people are imitating you and when they do some of the things that you do, that means that you're the market leader. And Rob, that was Rob went to business school, so Rob used to say, I like to think we're the market leader, and that's it's hard to stay to be the market leader. There's a lot of people with ideas, and other leagues have done some interesting things, like MFL, for example. They have a timer, like it counts off the time in the game, and it's not the referee that does the time; it's the scorekeeper. That's a different thing. I mean, I don't know if you'd want to do that, but it's a scorekeeper, right? But that's is that interesting? I mean, there's other leagues, like I was reading some rules. They have something called the throw. I think it's called the throw off, which is basically like a kickoff, but you throw the ball. People wait at the other end, and it's like a kickoff. They get the ball, and then they start running with the ball. Yeah, it's a little gimmicky. They have, we've done some other things. Sorry, I better adjust my computer. We've done some other things. We've had 3-point converts. I mean, I was never a crazy fan of it, but it was a bit weird. But we tried it. So you have to try things and then see if they work. So basically, what I would say is one of the things that we've done, I think the last year or so, we introduced the 5-on-5, which is sort of being played all over the world now. That's what's going to be in the Olympics. It's sort of it's a slightly modified from the national game that we have, like that's played nationally, like in the championship games, and it's similar to like IFAF, like the International Federation of Football and all that. It's very similar to that. I think. I mean, I don't know if you've played it yourself yet, Brent. It's different. Like there's, you have a pro clock, which we actually introduced in the other divisions, which I like personally. I think the pro clock makes it more like a real game. That's my own feeling. Like as a football fan, like a tackle football fan, I think quarterbacks having to manage a clock at the end of the game is much more meaningful than 5 plays. And I don't think anyone's complained about that. The 5-on-5 rules, like, the quarterback can't run. That's quite different from the 6-on-6 where, one guy can run. And like I say, when leagues start with young kids, I say, I think you want to have where you have to have a handoff because, as you know, it's as I think it was Bear Bryant said it, Brent. It's not the X's and the O's; it's the Billy Bob and the Billy Joes. And if you got a Billy Joe can ruin the game, or I mean, depending on your point of view, he can just control the game because he's running all over the place almost every play. So I think 5-on-5 kind of eliminates that because you have to have a handoff, and if you hand off, anyone can rush from anywhere to deflag the player with the ball. So I think that adds an element. But then people come up with other innovations, like they do laterals and they throw the ball. They do double laterals. Like if you go on YouTube, watch Japan play. Like when they played the Americans, they don't have near the athletes that the Americans have, but they compete because they have a lot of innovation, which you would kind of think would happen with the Japanese, right? Because they're very innovative culture. So all things like that. So I'm always looking for a way. Every year we have changes in the rule book. The 5-on-5 rule book is the one that it's the national one. We apply that with a few modifications. You've seen a rule that we created a couple of years ago, the rules committee, which was the onside attempt, which is basically you get to try an onside kick if you score and you're losing at the end of the game, but you don't kick the ball. You try to get to midfield and all that. So there's always room. Like I said, to me, it's always important. Like I said, half of the committee is players. and half our rules. And you need people that know the rules well. That's why we're there, and we have usually 3 players on it, and they come up with and people suggest different things. We've had scorekeepers make suggestions. Remember, and sometimes you have limitation, which is you have to have the game done in an hour because we have so many games per night.
Yeah,
Like let's
yeah,
say
yeah.
5 hour slot, 5 games, but you can't have the games running hour and 15 minutes. So and it was a bit of an experiment. It was a little bit of a petri dish this year, like to try with the 5-on-5. I think generally the games all fit like they used to. There's been the odd time they've run over. I'm sure you've seen it a few times where the pro clock, like the better teams know how to really massage the pro clock.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And right, and so they can, they get a first down out of bounds, incomplete pass. I mean, that pro clock can go 10 or 15 minutes, so you have to make sure you've budgeted enough time. That's why it's important to start on time and all those things. So,
Yeah.
so the other things I guess I would say is, I mean, like I believe, and don't quote me on the statistic, but I believe there's about 50,000 girls playing high school football in Quebec, like flag football. It's a huge number, and just look around. There's all kinds of leagues. I mean, in FPF, I think we've had like now 3 or 4 divisions of women's teams, and they added this one in the springtime. And we have a very high caliber. The women's Division 1 are the top players literally in Canada, and now I guess it's going to be the world. We'll see how they do, but these are like some literally the top players around. So, I mean, you can't have someone who's never played before playing against a team with, Montreal Carabin players and like Concordia Stinger players that are playing on the national team. It's such a drop off in talent, which is natural.
Yeah.
So you have to make different divisions and all that, just like we do with the men, right? You have Division 1. I mean, imagine a Division 1 team playing a Division 7 team. I mean, it would be just calamitous, right? That's why you have different divisions. Is people have different levels, different interests, they have different goals. Like, Division 1 teams, they're trying to win the division. A lot of these guys are playing on the national team, or they're playing like in tournaments. So it's just a whole different thing. So I think that one of the good things FPF was able to do over the years is incorporate all these kinds of players and figure out the different divisions. And I think overall they've done that pretty well when you look at it. And now, of course, they have co-ed. We have, I think, 3 or 4 divisions, 3 divisions, right? Of co-ed.
Three co-ed, and a new women's division as well, women's C.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's to me is the pathway for growth would be like women's and the co-ed. And I think it's great for the women. They like co-ed. You play in co-ed 1. I mean, you're playing with some top men players. If you're a female, let's say, you're playing against the top men players because a lot of the Division 1 guys and Division 2 guys want to play in co-ed 1, and they play with their girlfriends or their friends and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a way. You look at the Mavericks. The Mavericks is, of course, a separate league that we do referee. We basically send referees to ref their games. They have quite a nice program for kids, which is basically it's like a big host league, and then they have some traveling teams. But like I just got a note today, the Kirkland League that we refed in the springtime, it had 500 players. That's 50 teams. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of teams, man. I mean, that's kids playing football. Now they're not high level players, but you're going to see some, like what I call, potential prospects there. And like that could, let's say 50 of those kids become great players. Half of those kids could be elite players. Well, now you have a travel team or a couple of travel teams and that's sort of what they do. But then they have another league that they started in Dorval, which is, maybe 15 kilometers closer. And I think they were expecting 200 kids. They got like 400 kids. So they had to make another division and add an hour onto their schedule. So that's great. I mean, I think there's all this opportunity. There's all kinds of kids playing, but now you need more coaches, more referees, and more fields. Yeah. So there's physical limitations. Like, and I think because, and I remember I was a pretty good soccer player. The problem with soccer, to my mind, is, you have 22 kids out on the field and there's one ball. And they're all running around, and usually a couple kids control the ball, and everyone's running around in a circle. Flag football, I think it's just more participatory, right? And the 5-on-5, especially, you can put 3 or 4 fields on a real football field. So now you got whatever that is, like 40 kids playing at the same time. They're all running around. They're playing defense. They can play rusher. They're not just running after a ball. So I think I think it's more interesting for the kids. I could be wrong. I mean, this is just my opinion, what I'm seeing out there. So.
Okay, so let me ask you. You brought up a lot of good points in that answer. So firstly, you talked about, again, not quoting you on the number you said. You said around 50,000 let's say around
I
there,
believe
right?
that's the number. Yeah, in Quebec. Yeah.
Okay, what do you think is the biggest contributing factor to that, the rise of football for females, I should say, pardon me, playing football?
Well, I mean, you think about it. I mean, I was talking to one of the assigners for high school football. So they often play 7-on-7. Okay,
Yeah.
and some of the French schools play 5-on-5, but they also play 7-on-7. 7-on-7 is sort of the traditional game that they play in high school on one field with two referees, 14 players.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, I can tell you from a refereeing perspective, that's a lot of field to cover. So I think eventually they're going to move to the 5-on-5 because it's easier. They can put more fields, more kids. I mean, if you look at it from a school perspective, you have a one team with 7 kids on it that are out there on the field. So let's say you have 10 kids playing. Well, if I had 3 5-on-5 teams, let's say divisions 1, 2, 3, I got whatever that is, like 30 kids playing. So I can double the amount of kids playing, triple the amount of kids playing. So I think from a participation standpoint, 5-on-5 is eventually going to grow and become the standard. So the reasons why, I think girls especially, boys play tackle football often in the fall. Like if you looked in the springtime, a lot of those kids that were at the championships and the provincials that was held in Drummondville, these are tackle players that play flag in the springtime. Coaches like it. Guys are active. Guys, let's say you're an offensive lineman and you get to play on the flag team. You're probably not going to during the season get too many balls thrown your way. In flag football, hey, you throw the ball to the guy, and all of a sudden, hey, this guy's a guard, but he's got good hands and he can run. Let's put him at tight end. Earl Campbell was a center for all the youngsters out there. Earl Campbell was a Hall of Fame running back for the Oilers. He was a center in high school. He snapped the ball. The quarterback dropped it. He picked it up and he ran like 50 yards. And they said, put that guy in the backfield and give him number 34. So you never know what a kid can do, right? So I think flag is a way for kids to get into it. They throw them the ball. Maybe he's a good defender. He could be a linebacker, a safety. It gives more opportunities. So I think from the male perspective, they're using it as training for the tackle guys. And of course, some kids aren't going to play tackle. They're too small, they're too slow or whatever. So you can still have a flag team. And the girls, they normally don't play tackle. There's a little bit of girls tackle, really not very much. It's hard because they don't have the leagues that supply them, like Adam, Mosquito, Pee Wee. So the girls are playing flag football. And you look at the girls, like you look at just in FPF, the quality of the top division. I mean, I think anybody's impressed. It's not like I think I'm guilty as anybody that's an old guy. I said, oh, she's pretty good for a girl. Now I just say, wow, they're very good because they can just flat out play.
Exactly, yeah.
And if you go on YouTube, you watch the top female players, they have as much skill as the men, like literally. And like they are fast, they can catch, like they're obviously not going to top end, like be as maybe be able to jump and whatever, but they are amazing. Like it's just same thing. Like when you look in female professional basketball, hockey, it's taken a while, but people say, hey, these are still great. Like they are great athletes, and people will pay to watch great athletes, whatever they are. And I think eventually, maybe one day, Brent, that'll be something. There'll be like a semi-pro or a pro female or male league across Canada. That would be kind of cool for flag football. Who knows? At one time, I remember Rob and I discussed and we tried to talk to TSN or I guess it was RDS in Quebec about maybe showing some of our games, like our top division games at night, because if I said if you're showing darts, you should be able to show flag football. It never happened, but who knows? That's something that right. And as you know, Brent, you're in communications, and you're broadcaster. When we do our finals, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like you get guys that know what they're doing. That you and Mo and some other guys, broadcasters. They're broadcasting the games. It's like legitimate, like play by play. And like people watch it, they go, "Wow, this is really good quality, man!" Like the angles. We have video replay. You're calling the game. You have the color. I mean, it's pretty cool. Like it's pretty cool.
No, 100%. Listen, I remember. I think I've told this story before. I remember before there was a women's division in FPF, and I remember one of the first females I saw play. There was a team of police officers, and there was
I remember that
females,
from Laval. They were from
yeah,
Laval,
exactly, yeah. And there was one or two females on the team, and they were great. They were amazing. They were like burning people on goal routes. They were making plays as defensive backs, and I was like, I told Rob, yeah, we need to get some more ladies in here, and a couple years later, I mean, I'm not taking the credit for it. Rob had agreed with me on the time, was just finding more and more females that wanted to play. And like you said, that's at least 10 years ago, I want to say.
Mhm.
You go forward now, right? And there's tons of amazing females that are playing. Again, look at Team Canada, right? I mean,
Oh
how
yeah, I
many
mean,
ladies playing
I,
from
I remember
FPF?
there was a girl named Badu. I don't know if you remember her. She was a coach at Concordia after in football, and she was a cop, and she was one of the players. She was one of the top female players, like literally ranked as one of the top 10 a couple of years ago. She was a great player, and she played on that cop team as you're talking
Right,
about.
right.
So yeah, no, you're right. And so the other thing is like, so I mean, for just speaking strictly for FPF, it's always been a challenge. I think to have the junior teams because you would have such a variance. Like let's say like there was a flight school team. Flight school has been to international tournaments and won them,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And the Mavericks are kind of a more recent thing where they have the travel team, but you never have enough high quality teams to have one division of, let's say, quality teams. So flight school and let's say the Mavericks, they would murder everybody in their division. Young kids, they don't want to lose 60-0. And parents are like, why am I paying money for my kid to get massacred every week? So you want to have it, like I think what the Mavericks are doing now is kind of like house league. They don't even, in the Dorval League, they don't even have a scorekeeper. They just have guys coaching, and we're kind of like coaches. Like I guess they're kind of keeping loose score, but it's really more just teaching skills, learning, and then if they're really good, then they start playing competitive. And it's a bit like hockey, like sometimes you have house league, and then you have the AAA, AA. If you're a serious hockey player, your parents are going to pay a lot of money, and you're going to be playing AAA and like the Lac St. Louis Lions or whatever. Then you're going to go to the Q, then you're going to go to the pros, but most of us are never going to go to the pros. Most of us don't even play like in university or top level, right? I mean, that's reality, right? So this league, like FPF, like I remember when Jeff took over the league, I got him to referee a couple of games with me, and I think it was like Division E or something like that. And he plays in Division One. He goes, wow, this is very different from Division One. I said, but Jeff, I go, most people playing in the league, they're not playing Division One. They're playing in the Division C, the Division D, and that's completely fine. But it's not, the whole league is an elite. No anything like that is never going to be all elite. But they're still paying customers. They still want to play. And I tell the referees, when you go out there, give it your best game because, when a D team plays a D team, it's very competitive. That's why they're in that division, right? So that's the whole point of it is all these people want to participate. They want to have fun. And I think it's our job to help them achieve that, as the referees. So.
Okay. So speaking of females and football, there's a certain little girl who I remember on the sidelines a couple years ago when you were refereeing some games. She'd be kind of playing on the sideline, hanging out with Mo, sometimes sitting next to me, and super chubby cheeks. And that young lady has now grown up a little bit, and she's a referee. Of course, I'm talking about your daughter Phoebe. So Phoebe's now officiating. I know she was at Vanier doing track, phenomenal athlete. You've done a great job as a parent. Obviously, she's just a spectacular girl. Just talk about obviously Phoebe now as an official. You worked the game with her last night. How proud does it make you that your daughter is kind of following in your footsteps a little bit?
Well, I mean, I guess you'd have to ask some of the other referees. They said, "Well, I hope you didn't give her all your bad habits, Leo." So I don't know, but no, I mean, she started playing as a kid and she really liked it. And it's funny because she also was a soccer player and she had a lot of speed. She seemed really quick. She kind of liked it, but she was sort of like she was like 8 or 9, and she wasn't the best kid out there, but she was fast. Like I thought she had speed, and of course it's my daughter, so it's hard for me to judge how actually fast she is, But I said she seems to be faster than most kids out there. So I brought her to a coach that I know, and I said, just run her through some drills and some timing stuff. And if you think she's got a potential, she'll start to run track. And the guy said, yeah, he goes, she's probably like in the top 2 or 3 percentile. And with training, she could be a pretty decent sprinter. So she did, and she won some races. She won some GMA. She was the athlete of the year in GMA. She went to the provincials. She's like a relatively decent, and she dedicated herself. She pretty high level provincial sprinter and jumper, like a long jumper. And of course, but she kept playing flag football. Of course, she'd see me reffing, and she always was interested in the football. So I think now she's 17. She's going to be 18. And I think she's sort of dedicated more now to that. She was an all-star at Vanier last year, the only all-star player they had. So I was quite proud of that. And I basically just try to, like I tell people, she's got her mom's long legs and good looks and dad's bad attitude. So, I just try to get her to, I said, you go out there every time and you give it your all. And, the most important thing is to be a good teammate, even like as a referee. You don't want to be that guy, or that girl And I said, you want people to referee with you and say, hey, like that was a good positive experience. That person brought something to the crew. They bring something to the league. Like even as the referee in chief, like I want people to say when I'm done, at least that he was competent, and like I hope they had a good experience. You always want the players to have a good experience. Like I know obviously sometimes they're not happy with the outcome, but I do hope that they at least say, hey, like that was a fairly officiated game. That's the most thing. So I've taught her all these kinds of lessons and different things. And as you know, Brent, any athlete, any referee, they got to find their own path. So I put her with different people and I ref with her when I can, so, once in a while, and I'll give her some pointers. And like all teenagers, she sort of listens and she doesn't listen. And like all of us, we learn the hard way, probably the
Right.
best way, right? And I said, I'm going to save you some pain and suffering. You should do this. But invariably, they kind of do their own thing, and then they go, oh, what? You remember that thing you told me to do? Well, I now I understand why you told me to, like, if I have a lot of grass behind me, I got to start running earlier. And voila, I said that's why you were flat-footed and the pass went 30 yards behind you because you were looking at one receiver. So these are lessons that all the referees go through, right? So she's no different. I like to think I was able to accelerate her growth a little bit, but yeah, she's her own person. And I think on the other side, as a player, when I was playing, I didn't like referees. I was a captain many times, and I used to hate dealing with the referees. And I used to think, like many players do, like that guy's got it in for us. And when I became a referee, I realized a lot of times they're just trying to hang on to the ship as it goes through a storm and make it through the game. And I'm sure there were some calls that were questionable. I'm not going to say that, but so all I do is I tell her, listen, you try to be fair, you try to make the call, see what you call what you see, and if you do that, I think you're going to get respect from people. And the last thing I was going to say was, as a player, I think it helps you to really know the rules. I wish I had known the rules better as a player. Like I wish, like we sometimes go to training camps and different things. Like last year we went to McGill. I went with another official, and we went and we showed some video and we talked about rules. Tom Cesare, who was a referee for many years in FPF, he asked us to do it because he normally would do it himself. He's the assigner and the sort of the supervisor of the university officials, and he has a lot of high standards for us and for the players, etc. So we went and we talked about, like, here's holding, or like we'll show a play, like, is this holding or not? Why is it not holding? Well, it's holding because it impacts the player, impacts the play, and it's close to the action, etc. And there's all kinds of like criteria. So, and you speak to, I know you and Mo are two guys that often speak with the referees, just sort of get inside the head of the referees and understand. I think us pretty good now after seeing a lot of games yourself. And like there's sort of a standard way we call things, like, oh, I see that guy got run over, they're going to call illegal contact there. Like that's almost a given, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like anything else. What the rule is, you see it, you see something that contravenes the rule, well, there's probably going to be a penalty. So that's sort of the art and the science of refereeing together.
Okay. Okay. Breaking away from football for a second,
Hmm.
so putting some context. Um, you and I have had dinner a bunch of times.
Hmm.
We're always laughing after games. We've had a beer or two.
Not
What's your
enough.
yeah 100%. Well, what's your go-to dinner? If you're making something for supper either before this podcast or maybe afterwards, what's your
That's a good
go-to dinner?
question. I actually had a similar conversation with Phoebe, my daughter, a couple of weeks ago. If you had your last supper, what would it be? I'm pretty sure it'd be a porterhouse steak with a beer, probably a Monte Carlo potato with the all the trimmings, and the cheese inside, and then for dessert, probably a creme brulee. And yeah, it would probably be a good steak. Although I would go for tacos again, Brent.
Yeah, we have to 100%,
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, so it would probably be a steak dinner. I know it's kind of standard fare for a meat eater, but yeah, that would be me.
Okay, what beer are you drinking?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably. Let's see. Guinness. See, Guinness is more like a winter beer, which I do enjoy very much. But with the steak, probably have maybe a Heineken, something like that, like a
Yeah.
nice light beer. Maybe, yeah, something like that.
Okay. When you're away from the football field, when you're not at FPF, you're
Mm.
not doing any tackle games, what do you like to do in your spare time?
There's not a whole bunch of it these days, I got to tell you. But what I do, I'm as you know, I used to be a teacher. I used to be a
Right.
journalist. I
Right.
tend to read a lot, and I tend to focus on kind of three themes of reading. So I like biographies and autobiographies just sort of like, someone telling about their life and life story. I really enjoy those. I'm a big horror fan, so I'm a big Stephen King fan. He's the king of horror. I read a lot of those, and I do also like, of course, sports books, certain books about sports, or especially about football, or like sometimes like coaches talk about like the way they've coached. I don't coach anymore, but and I've read a couple of officiating books. I have to tell you, they're not as good as the coaching books, in my opinion. But those are kind of the three areas that and not necessarily just football. Like one of the referees, Sean Bedrosky, is a big baseball fan. He's a Detroit Tigers fan,
But yep.
and he's got a really great collection of sports books. And so we trade. He just gave me a couple of. I used to be a big boxing fan. I used to live across the street from a guy named Rocky Brisebois, who was the Canadian middleweight champion. And when I was a kid, I used to go to his gym. He hired me, and I would carry the buckets, and like when guys would get knocked out, bring the towel and the ice and all that stuff. I loved it, And this is the era when like Rocky came out and all that, like they're in the 70s, right? So I do enjoy boxing books. There was one I read recently. It was called, I think it was, if I recall correctly, it was called The Sound and the Fury, and it was about Ali and Howard Cosell. I know you're a big fan of these books, and we've talked a few times about. Another one was, I know you're a big 49ers fan. There was one called Building a Champion. I don't know if you've read it or not, but
No.
I actually have a couple of copies, so I got that's on my to-do list. Bring you a copy of Building a Champion.
I will take it.
And of course, it's all about the Niners with Bill Walsh and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So, and the other thing I would say is not so much recently when I was working more as a teacher and when I was a journalist, I would read a lot of books about people that are successful in different businesses, just to try to, because I think success is a transferable skill. Like if you look at successful people, they often have a lot of traits in common. They usually get up really early. They're usually very organized. They're usually very punctual. Yeah. These are things that I think transfer to anything. And like for a referee, you can't be late to games. We've had a few guys over the years that have, been late, and it doesn't work. It's not going to work for you as a referee because you got to be on time, be on schedule. So I think that's the other thing. I don't read so much now because I'm older, and I guess I've assimilated a lot of those things. It's always the same sort of themes, do the important things first in the day. There's been all kinds of, Tony Robbins, all these guys like John Peters have written books about being successful in business. And if you could probably do it with AI now, Brent, but if you put all these books into a computer and spit out the top 10 things, those are the things that would be at the top, I'm sure. I'm sure most successful people that watch this podcast would have the same thing, try to have a good circle of friends, try to focus on the important things every day. Don't sweat the small stuff, all that kind of stuff. So, and I think I've just, I guess internalized it over time. Not that I'm such a super successful guy, but in the things that I'm successful in, I think I've applied a lot of other people's philosophies. And then over time, you develop your own kind of philosophy, especially as an official, right? And I've interacted with like fantastic officials over the years. Like some of them we still work with today, as you know. And all those guys, I depend a lot on the older guys. Like another guy like Jack Nudie, he's a university official. He's the president of the Tackle Association of Montreal. He's a good friend of mine, a great friend of mine. We talk often. We compare notes. And of course, as you know, all the referees like to cut each other up. So that's the other thing. The social element of officiating is very neglected by broadcasters, Brent.
I was going to ask you about that. So obviously you, Jack, Brent Young, Walter Berry, sure. Even Mudd. You talked about even guys like Andy Peterkin. So talk about some of those road trips, whether it's tackle, obviously, like if you're going to the
well, listen, I can't tell tales out of school, but I will say that Walter Berry, he's been known to have a beer or two after a game. Brent's always good for a couple beers, so you put all those beers together and it adds up. It's a collective beer saturation kind of thing. Now these guys are great. Like, you've seen us even sometimes. Sometimes people say it's a little bit, why are you doing these games? Like we do games till 10 o'clock at night. And sometimes, like, not naming any names, but people have been known to have a beverage after, and we like to sit in the parking lot. And that, I think that's part of it is, or like, in the bar after, have a beer. And I think the social aspect, when you've been a player in sports, the camaraderie is one of the things you miss the most when you stop playing. Right? I mean, when you're a football player, like there's usually 40, 50 guys. It's a locker room. It's a little bit different. But again, I'm sure you have still some great friends from when you played tackle football. I mean, I'm still friends, and we do road trips to go see the Lions. And I went to see Michigan a couple of years ago. These are guys I played with like literally 40 years ago. And when you get in the car with them or you go to a game with them, once after about 10 minutes goes by, the normal conversation of, hey, how's your kid, how's your wife, how's your grandkid, like Sean Madrowski's got a couple of grandkids now.
Yeah.
He's a grandpa. Once we get past that, it's all the old stuff like, hey, remember that game, or like you still have that injury that you're faking since 1985, or all that kind of stuff, right? And the joy of the social impetus of those things is we look forward to those things, really. I mean, and especially as the guys get older, they know that there's less time, like reffing and playing or whatever. I think that, having a good social network of friends and stuff, and that, like I said to you before, Flag Plus, I think that's one of the things. I think that's one of the things people miss about Lachine, because there was a little restaurant bar there,
Yeah.
and you could come up to a referee having a beer. I mean, people have bought us beers. I mean, not every night, but guys come up, hey, let me buy you a beer, ref. Like you've been a great referee over the years. Hey, well, thanks, man. I'll take your beer. And or just they want to sit down and ask us, or like, what, the game's over now. You made a bad call. Like, how do you feel about the call you missed or whatever? Like whatever. Like, and like there's some guys that I knew, like I first knew you as a player, and you were a guy that would ask a good question, like you say, like, ref, did you see that? Maybe you missed the call. Like, can you take a look at this? I think the guy's holding. Okay, that's a reasonable expectation. It's all about meeting expectations, but people sometimes have unreasonable expectations. So all that to say, getting back to the social thing, we do enjoy to have a little bit of a little bit of cheer after the games, for sure. That's definitely part of it. You've seen the university guys after games.
Yeah.
We'll have less and less, because it's sort of verboten. We don't have that much cheer in the dressing room after anymore, but we'll find a way to somehow get together and have a beer at some point or another. You can always have a beer with a friend, right, Brent?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so let me ask you. So this is focusing on FPF.
Sure.
Of all the officials that you work with, again, you're the head official. You're the assigner. Well, who's the one official that no matter how tense the game gets, they're able to stay calm and cool, and maybe even crack a joke or two. Like, especially when you're doing maybe a Division 1 game, Division 1 finals, Division B finals, something like that. Who's able to keep things cool at all times?
That's a good question. Well, the two that come to mind really are, like, I mean, I work with these guys for many years in tackle and in university. Walter Berry's been, he's been retired from tackle for about 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
He was one guy, and he although he's Irish, so he had a little bit of Irish temper. So he would stay calm, but I mean, he wasn't afraid to like yell at a coach. But I guess if I had to pick one guy, I would say Brent Young, because he is really, I mean, to me, the standard of being able to stay cool. Like, his father was a long time. His father was a referee for about 50 years. He reffed like university for like, I think 40 years. I don't know if you knew his father, because he reffed before you were around, but I remember him as a player, and he was a very, very good official. And I think Brent would. I mean, now Brent's been reffing about 45 years, since he was 15 or so. So he's got a lot of experience as well. And my nickname for him is Flatline, because I've seen some very, very tense games, like, Montreal Laval. A ball gets fumbled, somebody picked it up and scores what's going to be the winning touchdown, and no one knows, did the guy's knee touch the ground, and things like that. And Brent will bring guys in, say, okay, what did you see? What did you see? Okay, we have this. Okay, you saw the knee touch the ground. Okay, when did his knee touch the ground, before or after he had the ball? And he just has a good way of deciphering and kind of like parsing the information from the different officials and figuring out something that's going to be like a hopefully the proper call. He's a very calm guy. He would be probably the calmest guy that I would say. And he knows when to joke, and he knows how to interact with the players, and he knows when he has to be severe. So he would be certainly, for me, one of my mentors. He's an excellent, especially head referee, outstanding official for sure.
Okay. I want to play a little game with you right now. I want to.
Sure.
Actually, you know what? I was sorry. Let me ask you this. You know what? I'll put it together. Sorry. Okay, little game with you. Quick 1 or 2 word association.
Sure.
I'm gonna give you a name, or I'm gonna give you a team.
Okay.
First thing that comes to your mind. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. First name, Mo Khan.
Competence. I know you're expecting something else, but I'll go with competence.
It's a family friendly podcast, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's a good man.
Competence.
But he. I think he's just. I'm always. I always just say as a quick aside. I'm happy to work with people that are competent.
Yeah.
You're certainly a competent guy, and Mo has just been like super competent over the years. You could say a lot of things about our friend Mo, but you can't say he's anything but competent on many levels. He's on many other levels. He's something else, but on the work level, he's competent.
I'll give him credit. This will be the only time you're gonna hear me say something nice about Mo.
There you go.
I would say Mo's the heartbeat of Fly Plus football.
Oh, for sure. He really really knows the league, and he's touched on a lot of the. He's got his fingers in all the pies in the sense of he knows the owners. Or there's been two owners. He knows the referees. He really has a good global view of everything. Like, yeah, he's competence for sure.
Yeah, Mo, I hate your guts. So yeah, the niceties in there. Okay. AJ Gomez.
Superstar, and I mean that in a way that he's a great player. He's got a lot of athleticism, and he's also got the bravado. He's actually calmed down the last couple of years. But when I think of like a Johnny Rogers. I'm sure you're a little young to remember him. Johnny Rogers is one of the first guys used to run into the end zone backwards with a football. And so he acted like a superstar. So AJ certainly will act like a superstar, but he's got skills, and I'm happy for him that he made Team Canada. I think as he's matured over the years, like I've tossed him out of many games, and like he's got a bit of a temper, and he doesn't like referees sometimes their calls and stuff. But I think over time he's matured. He's a grown man now. He's married and stuff. He's a quality player, and superstar is a good name for him. Superstar,
Okay.
Kind of thing,
Okay. Kevin Wyeth.
GOAT. Any position, best player we ever had in the league. Especially, I mean, if you say any position, including receiver and quarterback, he would be, to my mind, the best player. I mean, I don't know what the numbers now. I know he's got over 1,000 touchdowns, passes, and touchdown passes. I mean, I don't care what league you're in. You've thrown 1,000 touchdowns. That's an incredible statistic. And I don't know the closest person to him. He's got to be several hundred passes behind him.
Okay, so I have it here actually in front of me. So Kevin Wyeth has 2,217 TD passes.
Wow. Okay, so you've even got. Yeah. I remember when he hit 1,000. So I'm not really a big stats guy in the league, but I know he's got a lot.
Yeah, he's got a lot.
So he's got 2,000. He's got 2,200.
Yeah, 2,200.
Wow, that's crazy. 2,000 touchdowns. And who's the next closest person?
Jeff, actually. Jeff.
How many does he have?
Behind him. Hold on, let me tell you right now. Jeff has 1,661. I'm not going to trust my brain to do the calculations here, so I will use my phone.
600 behind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, about 600 behind. That's exactly it. The exact number.
Yeah, so anyway, think about that. He's like 25% behind him.
Yeah, exactly.
And Rosenblatt's a good player. I mean, he's actually he's a better player, I think, than he gets credit for. And I give Jeff a lot of credit because when he wanted to keep playing in the league, I mean, I don't know. I didn't know how the players would react to that because he's the owner. Right. But I think his personality kind of helps him because he's kind of a low key guy. He doesn't want to be the show. He just wants to. He loves. I mean, he loves the league. He bought the league, right? I mean, that's the point of it, right? Mm-hmm. That's why he bought the league. I mean, it took him a long time to get around to buying it from Rob and all that. And I think the main thing is he loves the league, like so many. I mean, he has the means to buy it. So, but again, getting back to Wyeth, I mean, and I refed him in tackle. He's one of the few players that I've actually refereed where I could hear the ball come out. Like, they talk about Dan Marino, like it whistles, like it's like when the ball's thrown. Yep. I mean, you know how hard that is to get that sound. You really got to be throwing the ball with force. He's one of the only players I've actually refereed that I could hear the ball coming out. Great accuracy, a great competitor. I mean, I just think, again, like extreme ability and competence. I mean, you look at his stats over the years. I've never looked at them, but I'm sure, like the championships. I mean, what's he got? 18? Does it say 18 championships?
18, 18 championships.
I mean, it's great. I mean, his teams were always. He had a lot of good players, and he's throwing the ball to he must have thrown the ball to dozens and dozens of players. And I think most of the players would say that ball comes in hard and fast. He's probably mangled some fingers over the years because he throws a hard ball. And great player. I mean, and I know him well. He's a personal friend of mine. I like to think. I mean, I don't know him that much out of football. He's also a coach, so I've seen him coaching. Great player. He's literally the GOAT, I would say, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm going to go for another name here. James Drysdale.
James Drysdale, I was saying to someone 2 or 3 years ago, I told James this. I said, you have the ability to be on Team Canada. And I've seen I've done I think I've guesstimated. I've never been able to count because we don't have records from the early years. I've done about 7,000 games in this league as an official, something like that.
Wow. Okay.
So I've seen a lot of players, and he would be absolutely one of the top 2 or 3 receivers that I've seen. And right now, I think he's the best receiver in the league, and he's also an official. And I'm full disclosure, but before he became an official, and he's not doing that many games now because he's on Team Canada, he's on several teams and stuff. But just his overall ability, great speed, leaping ability, and there's a quality, Brent. And I'm sure you know this as a broadcaster, and having been a player. Some guys just have a knack to make a play in the right moment. And that's what separates the very, very good players from the great players. And I think Drysdale has that. And it's not like something you can, look at him and point it out and it's there. It's like if you have a beautiful woman, she might be good looking to lots of people, but she has the certain thing that just brings her over the top, like Sophia Loren, let's say. I mean, I'm dating myself again, an old Italian actress, but right, Marilyn Monroe. Like, there's a name people would know, right?
Okay.
Some people just have a certain thing, right? And it's hard to define that. And I think football players have that. Whether now a receiver, it's a little easier to see because they can catch, they can jump, they can run. But he puts it all together. Like, there's guys that are as fast as him. There's guys that can jump like him. There's guys that have good hands. To me, he puts it all together. He would probably be the best player in the league right now. And like I said a couple years ago, I said, to me, you're absolutely the one guy that I really thought in the league. There's other guys that I think had a good shot. Like, I think John Mayhew from the Braves, he could be a Team Canada quarterback, no problem. He's probably the best quarterback in the league right now. Kevin's a bit older, obviously. Right now, he's probably the top quarterback. But Kevin's still an excellent player. Like, he's still a good player, but he's pushing 50, the guy, You don't expect him to be, 30 years at the top of his game, right? But Drysdale, 100%, I would say, outstanding player. If I had to use one word, outstanding. He'd be the guy, like I said, and he actually made the team. So I feel vindicated in that way.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. Let's hop over with let's hop over to some of the ladies now. Sarah Parker.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one word. I'm trying to think of one word to intelligent. I've spoken with her many times. She's a Concordia alum, as like you and I are. She went to Concordia. Really intelligent player. I think her intelligence sets her apart. She seems to really be able to read well. That's why I would say intelligence is the word I would associate with her. Like, she just has, she has an arm and all that stuff, but being a quarterback is not about how strong your arm is. Being a quarterback is how intelligent you are, and you're able to put the ball in other people's hands. I think she's a great player in that way, and I think she's developed, Brent, over the years. She's I think at the beginning of her career, she was a little bit hot and cold quarterback, like streaky quarterback, like they call them. Right. I think she's become very consistent, and that comes with being able to read and knowing where to put the ball. If you throw a bad pass, just erase the last play, get on to the next play, all that kind of stuff. Being a quarterback, that's why professional quarterbacks are paid so much money, right? It's the hardest position. So I think I would say the top quarterback we've had. We've had some other good ones in FPF, but she would probably be the best female quarterback and one of the best quarterbacks overall. Like, she's played against the boys and the men and stuff, and really and a top-notch person as well. So really, those are the kinds of people you want in your league, good players that are good citizens also, good citizens in the FPF community. She plays on different teams. She promotes the game. She teaches kids. Really good person. I really like her. And she's from Greenfield Park, by the way.
Oh, okay, nice.
Okay. Yeah. So I was born in North Bay, Ontario, but I grew up in Greenfield Park. So I consider myself kind of a Greenfield Parker, kind of by location. So she's from Greenfield Park as well. So. Share that. GPK represent,
Okay, nice. So I'm gonna hop over to someone that you've worked with as an official. She works. You've scored kept a couple of her games, obviously, over the years. Laurence Pontbriand.
Oh, yeah. Laurence, I mean, she's one of the movers and shakers in the CFL now. I mean, she's got a top job at the CFL. Super bright. So the one word I would use to pick her, ooh, boy, that's a tough one. Um, I would say athlete. Like she's really like she. I mean, it's too bad she's a little bit older now, and she. I don't think she's going to play competitive football much more anymore. But I saw her play tackle football. She was on Team Canada. She's a great flag player. I really like when I say athlete, like in every sense of the word, could run, could catch, tall, and she has the compete. You know, a lot of people talk about, hey, do they have enough compete? You know, which I guess I'm not sure compete is an adjective, but it's a now it's a verb. But when they say you have compete, you have it's an adjective, right? She's got lots of that. Great player, yeah, really good player. And like again, she's she's putting a lot into the game. Like she works promoting, you know, she's also an official, as you know. So she actually asked, she came to me and says, I'd like to officiate to learn more about officiating. And a fabulous person, like really intelligent. You know, I got Phoebe to work with the Alouettes as a ball person, like a ball girl, and she was really happy to see her, and she's very encouraging to other young girls, and fantastic person. And I mean, we're lucky to have her again, such a quality person in the league. And I mean, I know Jeff Rosenblatt talks to her like quite often to ask her questions of what she thinks about this, and you know, because they have a different perspective than us old guys about football, right? And
Yeah,
I think
for
it's
sure.
a refreshing perspective. You know, we look at it from a guy like me. He's been around 30 years, seen guys kill each other on the gridiron, like in tackle football for almost 30 years, and having played, you know, I've been at it like myself for 45 years in tackle football, one way or the other. You don't really have the sensibility that the flag game has, you know. So it takes time. I think I have more sensibility about it, but Laurence Pombalian is certainly one of the people that showed me that you could be a great player in any kind of football, if even if you played tackle or whatever, you know.
Okay,
Great
okay,
athlete.
okay. I got three more names for you.
Sure.
So a teammate of Sarah and a teammate of Laurence. Sabrina, same last name as you, Sabrina Gervais.
You know, it's funny. I actually just texted her today, and
Okay.
I said, hey cousin, I said, je suis fier de toi. You know, FPF represent, and she laughed. You know, super player, man. My one word association would be dynamo. I mean, she would be. I mean, she could play defense like nobody's business,
Mm-hmm.
like a top defensive. I mean, she could show a lot of guys how to play defense. I mean, I don't know if you saw when they went overseas last year. I think it was Finland they went to. She
Yeah,
made
it's
this
Finland. Yeah.
interception, over the head interception. I mean, that would be great play by anybody in any league.
Yeah.
I was very impressed, and she can catch. And you know, she's a little bit older. She's about mid 30s. Sorry, you know, saying your age there. She's something like that. I think she's going to be. I'm hoping. To me, she would be kind of a natural captain of a team like that, of a Team Canada. Can still play at a high level, but she's
Yeah.
going to be a good role model and like sort of watch the little bear cubs as they start to learn. They got girls on that team that are like 20, 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You see a player like Gervais, you know, as Gervais represent. But no, but you know, she's out there and like she's competing, she's training, she's in top shape, and she has the focus of a seasoned player that you can't have when you're 20 years old. That's one of the other things. Just quickly back about Drysdale, he has a lot more focus than most guys his age, and I think that's another
Yeah.
thing that helps him separate. He's like zoned in when he's playing a game. Division 3 co-ed, you name it, he's playing that game at 100 miles an hour, and he's adjusting to the game, and he knows exactly when he has to turn on the gas. You know, and she's a lot like that as well. You know, like Gervais got that, and again, that game breaking playability, like can make that, you know, the big tackle or the big deflection or interception. She just has the natural. You can't teach that to players. Like you can show them to be better, how to move better, you know, have a better stance, all that stuff. But when a player has it inside of them that they're just competing and they know, you know, that's an amazing thing. And she's absolutely 100% dynamo, man. No question in my book. Great player.
Okay. Okay.
Great player.
Gonna go from one legacy player to another. Pat Jerome.
Pat Jerome. I was telling someone a couple of months ago, Pat Jerome, he's an older guy too, still plays coaching. Good to see him giving back, and he's got the best, probably the best smile ever in the league, and laugh. You know, he's got a great
Yeah.
smile and chuckle, right? Lovely guy, and he made the best catch I think I've ever seen in my life, Brent. It was a touch tournament, and it was a final of a touch tournament, and it was in Mediville or someplace like that. I don't know, it's maybe about 10 years ago, and he was being held, and he was running kind of underneath the goalposts, and I was in the back. I was like the field judge, and he was being held, and he reached behind with his left hand, and he caught the ball with one hand behind his back, running through the end zone behind the goalposts.
That's bad.
Holy hell, man! I'm telling you, I've never seen anybody catch a ball like that. And to me, I mean, he's got to have huge hands to do that. First of all, like physically have a hand big enough to squeeze a football that's coming in, but just to have the I don't know if you call it chutzpah or what, to actually put my hand behind my back and think I can catch a ball and actually catch it. I mean, that's confidence in your abilities, you know? So the word I'd use with him is confidence. That guy, he can make a lot of catches, and I'm sure you've seen him. He's taken a lot of people to the woodshed over the years.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
he knows his ability is going to probably be, maybe not now because he's older, but in his prime, I'll put him against anybody in this league. Anybody, any defender, great player. Confidence. Yeah, that's what I would say about
100%.
him. Great player.
Yeah, I fully agree. Fully agree. I've said in the past in articles, I think Pat Drone is the best receiver in FPF in the seasons that I was writing for Division 1 or Division A. I stand by that. Then now, obviously, again, he's a little older, but I mean, I've seen him play this past winter season. He can still get on his horse and get up the field and make plays.
Yeah, and you know what I think is good is that he's, obviously look at his stats and stuff. He's a great player, but when players play with him, they know he's being a player. But I think he's also able to communicate some of what he does. Like some of what he does is him. It's just internal. Like he can't teach people how to, but he's actually worked at the craft, right? He's worked at route running. He's worked at, catching the ball. He works with Jock. He's coaching with Jock, right?
Yeah,
and I think he's another really good player. And I think those two guys together, I think they found a way to teach other people, especially like they coach a lot of the women's teams. They can teach them how to be better players, because a lot of good players aren't always able to do that, as you know. There's people that are good at things and they're not great coaches, and that's a whole other skill. I like to think I can coach some people to be better referees. So that's a skill I think, I've been coached by a lot of good officials over the years. So that's something that I'm happy to give back that way. But I think Pat found a way, which is impressive to me, to sort of show people, you may not be able to jump like 40 inches like I can, but I'm going to show you how you can be a good receiver with the tools you have, and we'll work on some of the tools that you can improve. And so I think he's becoming quite a good coach as well, So good for him. Great player. A lovely guy.
Okay. I'm going to go. So for the last one, I'm going to, instead of a name, I'm going to talk about a team.
Sure.
Obviously, you're a diehard Detroit Lions fan. Heartbreak last year against Washington. What are your chances of winning the Super Bowl this year?
So my word is going to be hope. I never lose hope. I've been a fan since 1980. I met Billy Sims, who was the Rookie of the Year in 1980 for the Lions, and I was at a football camp, and he hung out with all the Canadian guys that were at the camp, and we really liked him. We enjoyed his company, and he would hang out with us, and we were lifting weights with him and stuff. And I mean, it was just like mind-blowing to be with this guy, right? You can imagine a 15, 16-year-old guy, like it was pretty heavy stuff, right? So I was like instantly with the Lions in that moment, and with Billy, and all that to say. So hope, I mean, they lost a couple of coordinators. They've lost some players. Hutchinson's coming back, so he's been injured. Hutchinson's a great player. You break your leg, I don't know if you can be the same player. I mean, players have come back from that. I think it was Jack Youngblood, going back in time here, but Jack Youngblood played in the Super Bowl with a broken leg, and he played afterwards. I mean, Hutchinson's going to have to stay healthy. That hurt them down the stretch last year. They were missing other defenders, but when you lose your top defender, I don't care how many schemes and red dog blitzes you have, you're missing a guy, right? So that's just reality. So, and I was taking the brave notion, like everybody, like, their offense can keep scoring, and if we can keep it within 25, 30 points, we can win. You need a defense. I don't care what anybody. You need a defense to win. So we'll see. I mean, I think, Dan Campbell, I'm not crazy about all the gambling all the time. I'm not that. If I was a coach, I'm certainly not that much of a gambler as a coach, but he's got a certain bravado. Coach, I think players like it, biting kneecaps off and all that stuff. I think people buy into it. It's good stuff. They're in a tough division. Packers are a good team. Bears look to be better. So we'll see. I mean, hope. That's my word for them. What are the chances? I'll take us going back to the NFC final against the 49ers, and this time we can beat them. I would take that, Brent.
Okay. We'll see.
So
If that happens, we'll get together, have a couple beers,
for
and we'll watch the
sure, for
game.
sure. No, I mean the Niners. I mean they've had a tough road to last year. There, I'm not sure what happened. It was kind of a funny year for them. I think that the quarterback was in a contract year, and I think he sort of played good enough to get his contract, and we'll see if he's the answer. I'm not sure. What do you think? Is he the answer or what?
I think he's the answer. I mean, he's proven he's got us to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of teams that would give up a lot for that. So
for sure. I mean, and you know what? When you look at it, like our quarterback, is he top 5 guy? Probably not. Is he top 10 guy? I would say yes. Is a top 10 guy good enough to get you there? Probably. So, again, they need other, they have other pieces that are good. They have some good receivers. They got obviously great backfield. But again, the defense to me is the one thing that worries me. A lot of. I don't think you could replicate the amount of injuries they had last year in another year. So I'm hoping that just statistically they don't do that. But they're going to need a couple more defenders. They need someone else to have a pass rush. Maybe one more linebacker. We'll see. Hope springs eternal, and I never give up on the Lions, buddy. I've never jumped off the bandwagon.
All right, yeah, you never jump off the bandwagon for the Lions or Notre Dame. I respect that.
Man. You know I'm going to be there. I try to be a loyal guy.
There you go. Okay, so
and FPF.
There you go. Okay, so last question for you.
Sure.
In about 10 words or less, what does football mean to you?
Oh boy, I've never really thought about that. Man, that's a tough question. That's really a tough question. I've never thought about it because I do it so many things in it. It's a basic part of my DNA. I would just say that. Like I played a long time. I've reffed a long time, and now my daughter plays. She plays flag football and she refs. I mean, it's been a part of me every season. Like I tell people, it's not a great year until September comes. And I can smell, people starting to burn wood a little bit. I know football season's coming. I know like now Notre Dame's going to be on TV, or I've been down there to see them play. There's a certain, and as a player, and I don't know if you've coached a lot, but when the leaves start turning color, it's just a certain kind of thing. And it's like a very seasonal thing. Now, flag football, they play it all year, so it's a different kind of thing. Yeah. So, but for tackle, strictly speaking, tackle, when I see the leaves falling and I start to see some guys I don't see much during the year, and they're all referees, and some of them, sadly, they passed on. Some guys have retired. I'm getting up there, so I told someone the other day, Brent, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm hoping it's not a train, So, no, everybody has these thoughts of mortality, right? When is the it's going to be your last game sometime as a referee or as a player, right? I mean, you were a player. You didn't know when your last game was going to be. You might have thought, well, this could be my last year, and when it happens. I saw interesting thing on the internet a couple of months ago, and it says, when you were a kid, when you played your last game of hide and seek, you never knew it was, and you never saw those people again, probably, or you saw them very infrequently. Yeah. And football's a bit like that, like you don't know when it's going to be your last game. When's the last time you're going to see these people? And I think that's one of the things of why people play sports is that joy of like camaraderie and sportsmanship and competitiveness. And as you get older, the body fails you. You get older, you get slower. You can't really compete. And then people start coaching or reffing or maybe broadcasting. I don't know, right? But you still. I think you still love the game. That's why you still broadcast. That's why you still scorekeep and you still play. Actually, even flag. So that's great. And I whenever people say to me, "Hey, how long do you think I should play?" I say, "Play as long as you can. Like do it until you don't think you can do it anymore." And we have an over 35 league, as you know, in FPF. Mm-hmm. And I think they were talking about having like an over 50 league. And you know what? Like I saw guys a couple of months ago on TV, 80 years old playing hockey. They were moving too fast. But you know what? If you can do it, by God, keep doing it, man. Mick Jagger's 80 years old. He's still running around in front of 80,000 people. Yeah. And, now before we said they were the Strolling Bones, the Rolling Stones. Now everyone's just going, God damn it, keep going, man. So that's my mantra now, Brent, with you. Okay. We'll just keep going until we can't do it. Right. Let's do that.
There you go. There you
All right.
go.
Well, thanks, man.
All right. Hey, listen, big thank you for coming on, man. It's about an hour plus. It went by really fast for me. I'm looking at the time right now. Like, shoot, we've been on for a while. Hey, listen, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. A lot of people wanted to hear from you. So, yeah, Leo Gervais, the head official here in FPF, stand-up guy, beer drinker, steak eater, Lions and Notre Dame fan. I don't know too much about that, but I mean, hey, stand-up dude, stand-up dude, stand-up
Thank you
guy.
so much. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you for coming on. Appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon. We'll talk
Thank
soon.
you. Thanks so much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
That's the end. Yeah. So, guys, so that was Leo Gervais, again, head official here in FPF, joining us here on the First and Goal podcast. All right, so we're over the 2-hour mark, so I'm going to try and wrap this up kind of quick here. So again, we had the 4 down segment that I started earlier before Leo came on. So again, first down was the injuries. We talked about second down again, should NFL or CFL players be allowed to play in the Olympics? Third down, so we talked about Sub-Zero, Leo and I, about obviously players like Sarah Gervais or Laurence Pobriand, Sabrina Gervais. I had a chance to I didn't scorekeep the game, but I was at Loyola Sunday morning. I had a chance to watch their game. They were playing this past weekend against Blue Pond. They won 20-14. So I mean, yeah, another win for Sub-Zero. That's not really a big headline here in FPF. It's kind of the norm. But sorry, Blue Pond. My apologies. But the 20-14 win was significant because Sarah Parker wasn't there. The aforementioned Sabrina Gervais wasn't there as well, and obviously Laurence Pobriand, she's not playing the season. So Emily Carrier, she's a receiver for the team. She snaps sometimes. She plays all over the place. She ended up filling in at quarterback for Sarah. Emily went 26-46, 218 yards, 3 TDs. So a big win by Sub-Zero. Sarah Cormier, 14 catches on 18 targets, and that's good for a person over 3 to 4 games. So she did it in one game. 14 catches, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tamara Journeau had a TD as well. So congrats to Sub-Zero. And then Sarah Parker had returned in their next game. They got another victory as well after that. So congrats to them on doing what they have to do. Fourth down. So question that Quizzy wanted to ask. He's not here tonight. His question though is Kevin Wyeth still the GOAT in FPF? Now we heard from Leo Gervais, obviously in his interview. That's the first thing that came out of his mouth is the GOAT when talking about Kevin Wyeth. I personally think he is the GOAT. Not a slippage in play by a lot by Kevin this year, but a couple more losses. Infantry again getting their first win of the season. Kevin is the quarterback of that team. He wasn't there for the victory, but a couple more interceptions the last few years. Again, he's still the best player and definitely best quarterback we've ever seen. But is he still the GOAT here in FPF? Some people like myself think yes. Other people think no. People think maybe Joe Mahieu has closed the gap. Maybe Alex Nadeau-Puis. Give your opinion. We're going to put it on Facebook. We're going to put it on Instagram. So is Kevin Wyeth still the GOAT in FPF? Maybe you think maybe AJ. Maybe you think it's James. Maybe you think of Rory Submergian, a bunch of Pat Jerome, a bunch of different players. Let us know what you think. So that's it for 4 downs. Quickly, pardon me, before we wrap up here. We had some poll results. On last week's poll, I asked on Facebook, who's the top male rusher in Flag Plus football? So Isaiah Allard, to the surprise of not too many people, and ended up finishing first. Out of the 230 votes that were cast, he got 66 of them. Coming in second place, actually, I thought it was Ethan Adrian, but my correction, I had just checked again. It's Raf Morelli with 29 votes, so congrats to Raf. Ethan Adrian coming in third place with 26 votes, so 3 less than Raf. Zachary Alberts-Gill, phenomenal rusher for a number of seasons. He plays actually on my team in Division C. He's actually second all time in career sacks in Flag Plus football. Let me see if I can find the sack total that he has right here quickly on the website. He has 388 sacks. There's Zachary Alberts-Gill. So he's just a little bit behind the first place reader, versus Ryan and Rady. Ryan hasn't played in a couple of seasons now, so Zach eventually will catch up to Ryan to be the all-time sack leader in FPF. So again, Zach came in fourth place, and coming in fifth is actually Thomas Coutu. So Thomas Coutu, who we had earlier on the podcast, again, he has 200. I believe it's 284 sacks, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check here. Yeah, 248, pardon me. 248 sacks for Thomas. So, again, so he was voted as number 5 on the top male rushers currently in FPF. Guys like Jordan McLaren Thompson just missing the cut. JC Farlan, another fantastic rusher, just missing the cut as well in terms of votes. I asked also who are the top female rushers currently in FPF. So Jessica Bossy Tappan of Sub-Zero, no surprise, she came in first. But let's call a spade a spade. She has been the class, the top of the mountain in terms of rushers. From the female side, out of the 80 votes to her cast, she got 31 of them. Sarah Mo Mathieu came in second place. She got 13 of the votes, coming in at 16%. She's a great rusher. I had a chance to see her a couple of nights ago. Really not as long as Bossy Tappan, but really fast off the edge or right up the middle, if you will. Leah Duval and Erica Dubois kind of rounding up the voting. And now when there's another rusher, I'm trying to get her last name. I apologize. Ginsley put her name up. It's Stella. My apologies. I'm going to get her last name for you. I've seen her play. I'm just her last name's escaping me, so my apologies. Yeah, Stella Jean Georges. That's what it is. My apologies. Yeah, so she came in fifth in the voting, and thank you to Jean-Lee Alexis for putting her name up. She plays for Ice Cold. I've seen her play, a really good rusher. Speaking of best smiles, we talked about Padro. I think Stella Jean Georges may have the best smile in terms of female players in FPF. I don't think I've ever seen her mad in any of the games that I've scored kept her. So props to everyone who came out to vote. Again, a lot of votes, actually over 300 votes combined between the men's and the ladies' votes. Again, so we have two questions for this week now coming up. First question is, what position is most important in FPF? Rusher or lockdown cornerback? Now, before, when I was talking to Thomas Coutu, he talked about Simon Antil being a lockdown corner. I personally think that rusher is the most important position in FPF after quarterback. If you don't have a good rusher, the quarterback has all day to throw. People can't cover for 10 to 12 seconds. But what do you think? My opinion doesn't matter. Your opinion does. So what's the more important position? Rusher or lockdown corner in FPF? Now, Quasi, to his credit, Quasi wanted to ask, is it rusher or quarterback? I personally think the answer is easy on that one. It should be quarterback. But if you know what, we'll put a question for that. We'll put that question up as well. So what's the most important position, rusher or lockdown corner? And also rusher or quarterback? You need a great quarterback to win. You also need a great rusher to win. So that's important. But you also need someone to cover those top-rated receivers. Some of the names we talked about before: James Drysdale, AJ Gomes, Pat Jerome, Thomas Coutu, so on and so forth, right? So which position do you think is most important? And the final question we're going to have for you is the onside pass or the onside run. It was talked about earlier by Leo as one of the rules implemented over the last couple of seasons. The question though is, should we get rid of the onside pass / onside run in 5v5? Let us know what you think. We'll have the poll on Facebook. We'll have the poll on Instagram. I'm really excited to find out what you guys think. Again, should we get rid of the the onside pass / onside run in 5v5? Okay, so that's going to do it for this week. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to listen. Just short of 2.5 hours. That was definitely the goal here today. Big thank you again to Thomas Coutu and obviously the main man, Leo Gervais, for coming on the podcast. I appreciate both of you giving your time and letting the fans hear, the players and coaches and everyone else, the viewers, get to know you a little bit. And we had a couple of laughs. We talked some ball as always. Again, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure again to fill out the polls on Facebook, to hit the polls on Instagram. A big thank you, as always, to our producer, the main man himself, Ali Reza, getting you all the stuff on screen. You see all the stats when we brought up the names and that, and all the graphics you see on Instagram. He does a phenomenal job. Our podcast would not be nearly as good as it is without a lot of his hard work and dedication. Again, Quasi will be back for next week's episode. Just want to say again, thanks for watching. I'm Brent Bodkin. We'll see you next time. Have a good one. Peace.